Jay Crawford, Adam the Bull, Garrett Bush, Tyvis Powell, Jason Lloyd. Plus, ba-da-da-da-da, you're loving him, Mikey McNuggets. And so many big names, it would take me hours to say all of their names. The ultimate Cleveland sports show starts now. Booyah!
Hey, welcome everybody to the Ultimate Cleveland Sports Show, along with Jason Lloyd and Mikey McNuggets. I was going to use your last name there for a second. I don't know why. I guess it's been a while. I'm rusty. It's been 2 weeks, I think, almost, since I've been on the air. Anthony, Earl, and Steve behind the glass. A lot to get to today. Guys, how are you?
Doing well. Crazy last 24 hours here, by the way. Just a chaos in a good way.
Oh, you mean with sports news?
Sports news, yeah.
Not in your personal.
No.
For Jason, it's more, his life.
Very calm personally, but chaotic in a good way sports-wise.
Yeah.
I'm just a disaster.
Yeah, you're a mess. You're a mess. You'd never know it. Like, you're very, together when it comes professionally.
You know who else was like that?
Yeah.
Fred McLeod, God love him.
He was a mess?
Fred was the disaster. The stories are legend. He would leave stuff everywhere. Like, on camera, he was as good as they come. He was a pro.
Yeah.
The old Cavs play-by-play guy.
Yeah.
But like on the plane, he'd leave his notes. He'd leave his bag. He was just. I'm sure he had ADD. Like me. I have no doubt he had.
That's
ADD.
why the other teams would get the playbook. 'Cause Fred left it on the plane. Fred was awesome, and he was when the Cavs were on that second run with LeBron. He would come on with Dustin and I all the time, and he was always a lot of fun.
Yeah, he was great.
Yeah.
Fred was a gem.
We miss him.
Human.
We miss him. He's missed on the broadcast, no doubt.
Do you know what Fred's middle name was? I got a weird middle name. My middle name's Irvin.
Irvin? Like Magic Johnson?
Michael Irvin.
Oh, Irvin, like with an I. Mm-hmm. My middle name's Howard, which I don't really like, but it's a normal name.
My middle name, I was named after my grandfather. It's Basil. It's not Basil. It's not Basil.
Basil the Behemoth Destroyer of gods and beat writers.
How do you spell that?
Basil.
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 He wants to add everything. Aaron. Basil.
Yeah, that's right.
It's the New Yorker and
Now, this you doing Boston?
Yeah.
Well, whatever.
Two north.
Boston.
They're both
Two north.
annoying.
Go down 95.
No, Boston's way more annoying.
No,
than New
I
York.
actually have a lot of family in Boston.
Yeah, they're
Boston's
way
way
cool.
Great city, terrible sports.
Terrible sports
fans. Terrible sports fans. In like the obnoxious, I
every
can't stand
fan base
way.
has some asses. You know what I mean? There's not. I don't know that anyone is better than the other, but there is plenty to get to today. We're going to spend a lot of time on the Cavaliers in the first hour, who of course have a new coach. A little bit on the Browns later as they cut a player. Does that symbolize anything else? We got a couple of guests later in the show on the Guardians and also the Cavaliers. Real quick, though, because I haven't been here in a couple of weeks, I am having so much fun watching the Guardians play baseball. And we're going to spend more time on the Guardians later in the show, but I just wanted to spend a few minutes on it here. I've been keeping track of the Guardians' home runs compared to last year, and they're basically 2 months ahead of their pace.
We used your tweet yesterday.
Yeah. Oh, did you? Mm-hmm. Yeah. And it's they're playing outstanding baseball. They need reinforcements. We know this. It's hard to make trades in June because there's so few teams out of it. Yeah, that was before last night's game.
They hit one more last night.
And so they're up to 89, which, again, you're talking 2 months ahead of schedule in terms of the power. There's no signs of slowing down.
Which is crazy, too, because they are hitting home runs at a significantly higher rate. But it's not like they lead the MLB in home runs. They're not even top 5. But they're 2 months ahead of last year's pace.
Right.
Last year, though we talked about how anemic it was in the moment, I'm not sure I fully grasped how few home runs they were actually hitting on a day-to-day basis.
I started doing a deep dive on some of the metrics from last year, this year, yesterday, but I haven't finished it yet, so I don't want to get it. I have a couple theories, but I don't know if the numbers back it up. But more importantly, Tyvis can have his home runs because Tanner Bybee is back. Those Cy Young votes are coming, baby.
He is, and it was good to listen. I think it's funny now that we're like pumped when a guy can get through 6.
Yeah,
that's a big deal.
No,
and that's even changed in the last few years because even until a couple of years ago, it was like get me through 7.
Yeah.
Now it's just like get me through 6.
Get 6.
And that's 2 starts in a row he's gotten through 6. Again, we'll get more into it later. But the best story is Stephen Kwan. If you haven't seen Zach Meisel's article in The Athletic, make sure you check it out. It's really cool. Like, Stephen Kwan is the everyman.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He is the everyman. He is unrecognizable. Especially if you see him out of context. Like, I bet people all the time walk past him wherever I don't know where he lives, wherever he hangs out.
He's on West 25th a lot, and you would never know.
And I bet you most people don't recognize him because he's a tiny guy.
I mean, I look down to him. Honestly,
he's probably like my height.
Yeah.
I mean, he's like 5'7", 5'8". He's a tiny guy.
Yeah, I think probably closer to the 5'7" than the 5'8".
Yeah, right. And there's nothing when you look at it. He even made fun of himself. I loved it in Zach's article. He was like, "My name is Steven." You know, like, it's a nerdy name, which it not necessarily is, but the way he said it was that way. He's so self-deprecating. He doesn't like all the stuff, and like he grew up playing pinball and playing chess. He's a total nerd in a great way, and but he's having a first half of the ages. It's remarkable what he's doing.
I think, as you talk about his stature and everything,
Yeah.
I think this is going to sound loony.
Yeah.
There's a lot of comparisons between Quan and Steph Curry. Part of the reason Steph is so popular is because he just looks like he's
That's
just a guy.
100% true.
He just looks like
he's bigger than people think he
Yes,
is.
but for a basketball player,
he's
not crazy tall.
He fits in a restaurant.
Yes.
Yeah, he's not going to stand out like
No.
he's taller than the average
And
person.
he does otherworldly things on the court that we've never seen before.
right. And plus, Steph's skinny.
Yeah.
And he doesn't look like.
And Steven Quan is this little guy who is flirting with 400 this year, and he looks like, certainly doesn't look like a baseball player.
And
Looks
the
like he should be an
slugging
accountant.
percentage, like
He's the highest slugging percentage on the team.
there's right now. Now, this is the last thing I'll say, and then we'll move on to the Cavs. There was a stat that Brian Kenny had on MLB yesterday. It's basically, what is your batting average compared to the average batting average in the league in that year. So in other words, a 300 batting average this year is worth more than a 300 batting average was in 1985 when a lot of guys hit over 300.
Yeah.
So as of right now, obviously we got 3 months to go, half a season, so we don't keep it up. But based on this statistic, Steven Kwan's current batting average would be the greatest batting average in the history of baseball.
Jeez.
If you compare it to the average batting average in the league. I put out a tweet yesterday. I don't know if you guys saw this.
If you gave 100
Yeah,
points
if you
to everyone
added
else-
100 points, I did this in the middle of the game yesterday, so maybe you changed 1 or 2 spots potentially. But if you added 100 points, 100, that's an insane amount of points, to the batting average of every single player in baseball except for Steven Kwan, he'd still be, I think, 17th or 18th in
You
the
had
league in batting
18th in the
average.
tweet.
18th! If you added 100 points to every player, that is nuts. More Guardians in the second hour.
Can I clarify one thing?
Yeah, go ahead.
I said I see Stephen Kwan on West 25th all the time. He
Yeah.
eats dinner and leaves. By the way, he's not out
Yeah,
late
he's
night. I
not
just want to make
partying.
sure no one
Yeah.
takes that the wrong way.
Yeah.
But he fits in with the dinner crowd, just
Yeah.
like you would, just like Jason would, just like I
Right,
would.
right.
Seamless.
Yeah, the funny thing is like I don't think any of us thought, oh, he's out partying.
I just wanted to make sure people
But
didn't
it's a
take
good
that. I just wanted to
clarification.
make sure people knew.
Yeah, he's like doing the early bird special.
And he's out, yeah.
When he's going home. All right, Anthony, let's get to some Cavs talk. New coach obviously hired yesterday. What do you got for us right now?
Before I get in, I just want to, you guys know, I, of all people on this panel, I love sports. I love them so much, I never want them to stop. But as the playoffs wind down and we get fewer games and the sports aren't sporting like I want them to, FanDuel lets me keep up with the sports wherever I want. All I have to do is open the app and dream up bets anytime I'm in the mood. And this summer, FanDuel is hooking up all customers with a boost or a bonus daily. That's right, there's something for everyone every day all summer long. All you have to do is head over to FanDuel.com/UCSS and start making the most out of your summer. FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of Major League Baseball. Visit FanDuel.com to look at ads to include... I wasn't supposed to read that part. It was in big, bold letters. And I'm
Don't
like,
read, yeah.
That's the last part I have to read.
We have the
And that
ticket,
was
though.
not-
Did you
Let's
put
get
it?
do
the
have a
ticket.
ticket
We got
for
a
today.
ticket, yep.
Boy,
It
don't
does
put
come
go
from
F
us.
yourself on the teleprompter.
Yeah,
Okay,
it's
Robert-
fine. I'm not
Ron
supposed to read
Burgundy.
that part. But this one comes from Andrew Adkins. He had Gunnar Henderson to record a hit, Stephen Kwan to record a hit, Jose Ramirez to hit a home run, and Tanner Bybee over 5.5 strikeouts.
Nice.
Turned $10 into $250. Congratulations, Andrew.
Excellent stuff. But real quick before we get to the Cavs, I just want to say, because I wasn't on yesterday, I want to thank and congratulate all my colleagues here for the great accomplishment of winning an Emmy. I know a lot of you know about it because we tweeted about it. Mike, Anthony, Earl, Steve, and G. Bush went to the event to represent all of us. They looked sharp as a tack. You guys were looking good. Were you guys wearing matching outfits or no? Did it just look similar? It almost looked like you coordinated.
Both own gray suits.
Yeah.
I don't know. Maybe my eyes are not great, but it looked like, all of you across the board looked sharp. Nice job out of you. Love to see G. Bush dwarfs all of you, of course. It's so funny.
G. Bush also brought a personal photographer to film the thing.
Of course he did, which
and
I
there's
love.
going to be a behind-the-scenes video coming out next week at some point. He wants to film confessional interviews on Thursday about the whole event. And I was mic'd up the whole time, and G was mic'd up the whole time. So we'll see what it captured.
And it was the I believe the only award as a team, as a show, won by WKYC in this. WKYC, the news department won a bunch of other awards individually, but
G looks like his dad brought his 4 kids to the play.
He really does.
G's huge. G is ginormous.
He's just humongous.
G stands for giant, yeah.
And people still don't realize it because he's sitting here.
He's huge.
And you don't notice the height difference as much when somebody's sitting. But you guys represented all of us very well. Congratulations to everybody involved with the show. I think we're all extremely proud of being part of the show. And it was an awesome accomplishment. I know a lot of people reached out to me. A lot of people reached out, I'm sure, to all of you.
Can we bring that picture up one more time?
Yeah.
I think we need to make Bull an emergency eye appointment if you think they all dressed alike, because those suits
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know what I was thinking.
You're not, Aaron. You're driving home today.
I don't know. I got to fix.
Don't trust your dad to see the road.
Maybe I just saw like Earl, Steve, and G at one point, and they looked similar.
Yeah, I'm wearing a totally different.
But yeah, it's I don't know what I don't know. I had a brain fart there. Not anywhere close. You're right. You're right.
Me and Earl often get confused for each other.
Yeah,
so I totally understand where you're coming from.
exactly
alike, you know. So anyway, congratulations, everybody. Good job.
Thank you.
Now let's go to the Cavs. They have a new head coach. It's Kenny Atkinson. I know you guys talked about it a lot yesterday. One of the storylines out of this is who made the decision. Dan Gilbert has always made the decision. Jason, am I correct about who the coach is going to be?
100%.
There was thought that maybe this time around, because you've made the point that he isn't involved in the minutia as much as he used to be.
Correct.
But in the end,
He's still the owner.
he still made the hire.
Yeah. And I'm playing into this because I just wrote an 800-word story that posted this morning on it. Ultimately, I don't think it's not a big deal that the owner made the call. The more of the big deal to me is that Dan's back. Dan's back in a decision-making role, because for a long time he wasn't, and for health reasons, and he had to get well. It was a massive stroke that he suffered. I think to this day people don't realize how close he came to probably dying. Like, it was a major, major stroke, and so it took years for him to recover from that. So now he's back into where he is part of the day-to-day operations, not to the extent that he was before.
Sure.
It'll never go back to that way before. But when there are crucial decisions to make within the franchise, his role to that previously was very limited, and now he's got more of a voice. It's very much Kobe, Nick Barlage, and Dan Gilbert. And I do think that it was close internally between Kenny Atkinson and James Borrego. Like, there was a lot of support for Kenny within the team. There was a lot of support for Borrego within the team. But all signs were pointing to it being a Borrego hire last week until the front office met with Dan, and then it was flipped and it became an Atkinson hire. He's picked every coach since he's owned the team.
Right.
Like, he picks the coach. He's the owner.
Yeah.
That's what happens. He pursued Tom Izzo, picked Byron Scott, picked David Blatt, picked Mike Brown,
Beeline.
picked Beeline. Like, Dan picks the coach. He's
And the
owner.
last two coaches in Blatt and Beeline, well, they're not the last two coaches, but they're the last two coaches that weren't, we fired this guy and now let's bring in the next guy.
Yeah.
The next guy, which was, JB and Ty, those were good choices.
Yeah.
Obviously, Ty was a great choice.
Yeah.
The Beeline hire and the David Blatt hire were all-time terrible decisions by the owner. I guess the concern here, because Kenny Atkinson is clearly a way better option than the last two guys Dan picked.
Obviously.
Way better. However, the fact that the GM apparently wanted Borrego is, in the end, you're right. It's the owner's prerogative. He can do whatever the hell he wants.
Yeah.
But does it concern you that the GM wanted the other guy, or do you not trust him either? I don't know.
When this whole process started, the very first two names connected to the Cavs job, like immediately, one tweet from Woj, Bickerstaff fired. Very next tweet, Kenny Atkinson
Right.
Candidate the Cavs will definitely pursue. Shams, Bickerstaff fired. James Borrego, candidate the Cavs will pursue. So the final two candidates were the first two candidates ever tied to the job.
Shams and I were talking about those names before JB was even fired.
Exactly. But I'm just saying those are the first two that publicly came out as, hey, these are two guys to keep an eye on throughout this process. Whether it was Dan, whether it was the front office, whether it was a collaboration, in this particular instance, I don't really think it makes that much of a difference because they were the two finalists and the owner or whoever ended up making the decision had a preference one way over the other.
Yeah.
And if this was a out of left field hire, if he had gone
as the last two were,
he had gone and poached someone from college with no head coaching experience or hired an assistant that wasn't talked about throughout this whole process, then I would have been a little more upset, I guess, with how it turned out. But I look at this in the way when you ask your girlfriend or your wife, do you want pizza or Chinese for dinner? And you're like, yeah, I probably prefer pizza. And she goes Chinese, and she wins that battle every time.
Every time.
And Chinese food's still delicious. Like, Kenny Atkinson is a good coach who deserved a second chance to be a head coach in the NBA.
I mean, Chinese food's delicious if you go to the right place.
You get the point I'm trying to make. So, Kenny Atkinson's a good coach. James Borrego is a good coach. It came down to personal preference. I had said on the show I like Borrego a little bit more because of some of the offensive stuff he did.
Yeah.
We're going to break down some Atkinson offensive stuff in a sec. It's not bad. I just prefer Borrego's a little bit more. But the Cavs got better yesterday, and regardless of how they came to the conclusion of landing on Kenny Atkinson to be their next head coach, they got a head coach who was deserving of the job. And at the end of the day, I think that's what matters more than the process it took to get to that announcement.
I think what matters the most, though, is how will the coach fit in with the players. And we know that Atkinson, when he was coaching young players, which is mostly what the Cavs are, seemed to fit in really well with the Nets. In fact, there was a video circulating yesterday of I'm sure you guys saw it, or maybe you didn't, of Jared Allen from an interview with J.J. Redick, I believe, earlier this year, where Jared Allen spoke extremely highly of Kenny Atkinson. And
they loved him.
And and then all of a sudden the team got Durant and got DeAndre Jordan and got Kyrie Irving, and everything changed there. But until that point, it had been a good situation. And the Cavs are a young team. They're more talented than the Nets, but they do have one veteran in Donovan Mitchell who they're waiting on a big decision. And you do wonder, did Donovan Mitchell have a preference between these two guys? But I don't know.
He signed off on both.
Oh, yeah?
So, yeah.
Okay,
yeah,
that's great.
He gave his blessing to either one. That contract should be announced here soon.
Yeah.
Any day now, really, the Donovan extension. So he's on board with this.
Great.
I'm just interested to see how involved Dan is going forward because he was around the team much more this past season than he has been since the stroke.
Right.
And it was really sort of a vacuum in that ownership chair for a number of years. And I would get calls all the time, like, what's going on in Cleveland? Like, where is he? Like, what is happening there?
Right.
And they tried putting Grant in place, his son.
Right.
And I really like Grant. Like, I'm on record with, like, I think he's a really good kid, but he's a kid. He just graduated college.
Right.
Like 4 years ago.
Wasn't ready for that.
Wasn't ready for that. Yeah, but there was nobody else.
Right.
So he was doing the best he could and trying to learn different. But there was no one else within the family to take that role. So it was. I likened it in the story I wrote today. I said it was Logan Roy returning from Succession. Logan Roy returning to reclaim his business. Yeah, that's what.
Because his son was in that case. His son was a nitwit.
Right. Yeah, that's not the
not the case here.
It was more here of there is nobody else.
Right.
To fill that ownership vacuum.
Yeah.
And so again, it's a much different Dan. He's not irascible and this angry wrath of Dan that people felt in that organization for years. That part is probably gone forever. It will never come back. But Dan returning in a decision-making capacity, I think that's the more significant part. Is just the fact that they have an owner again on the throne who is part of the decision-making process that they did not have before.
I wonder, guys, if this hiring means that Jared Allen is more likely to stay with the Cavs now because it seems like they have a good relationship.
Part of the reason he got fired in Brooklyn was he wanted to start Jared Allen over DeAndre Jordan.
That's right, yeah.
And Kevin Durant and Kyrie Irving were like, no, DeAndre's our guy. He should be the starter. And that's not necessarily what caused the initial friction between Atkinson and the Stars in Brooklyn, but that certainly didn't help ease any of the tension that had already been building up.
Do you think he's more likely to stay, Jason?
I don't think he's more likely to stay just because Kenny's the coach.
Right.
I think there's still a lot to be sorted out this summer with the Cavs.
Yeah.
And I obviously it's a good thing that Jared and Kenny have history together, and obviously there's a mutual respect there, and so I think that's wonderful. I just wouldn't look at it and say, oh well, Kenny's the coach, so Jared's not going anywhere.
Right.
I still
not 100% certain, but who knows, right? And I brought Fedor on my podcast yesterday, and he thinks there's a reasonable chance that they're putting this all on JB, and they're like, we have 4 real talented players. If we have a more creative offensive coach, maybe we can win with this group. Do you buy that?
That's what they're selling publicly right now. That's what they're telling. They're telling other teams, we're not breaking this up. We'll wait and see. Nothing has happened yet, other than the coach.
Yeah.
No actionable move has been made. Donovan hasn't signed the extension.
Right.
It's still June. We haven't even gotten to the draft yet.
Draft's tomorrow, right?
Yeah.
Tomorrow.
They are very much putting up a united front of we are running this back. And I've talked about it before. Like, that was the plan before things went sideways a little bit in that Boston series. The plan was to run it back with all 4 of those guys. Right. So Chris very well may be right. And I've said before, I wouldn't make a trade just for the sake of making a trade. You've got to make yourself better. But they could have some really interesting decisions that they're forced into making here in the next couple of weeks.
I think the question, Mike, and you go first on this, is alluding to what you just said. The Cavs can say what they want publicly, but down in the deep depths of the Q, or the Rock now, do they really believe they need to change for change's sake? Or are they only going to change if they could get Jimmy Butler or Paul George or one of those elite level players, even if they're older? What do you think?
What do I think they think?
What do you think they think, and what do you think personally?
I mean, I know from experience of when you assemble something, you want to see it through. When you're the architect and put something together, if you're building a house, you may go through a bad contract. We'll talk about Director Steve's deck.
No, boy,
Director Steve's going to finish that damn deck, whether he dies before it happens or not. And Steve's getting up there in age, so you never know. But I love you, Steve. But like, Steve wants that deck to be built. He's going to see it through the end, despite some of the turbulence that he's gone through in this process of building a deck, which started before I met Steve and is still going on to this day. So when you're the architect, if you're Kobe Altman, of course you want to see the core 4 you put together flourish into the maximum ability that it could be.
Right.
What that ceiling is, in my opinion, versus what Kobe Altman may think, could be totally different. I think fundamentally speaking, the core 4 as itself has proven over the course of 2 postseasons that it has a limit. And that limit is we could win a playoff round and we could probably compete, but we're not competing at the highest of levels. But I'm also not going to break it up for bits and pieces just for the sake of breaking it up. Before yesterday's hire, I was pretty sure that if you had to trade one or the other, Allen was the one I'd be willing to sacrifice in a trade because, A, his salary at $20 million a year is easier to get quote-unquote pieces back for as opposed to another star. You're probably trading the best player in Allen, but the guys you can make up because of the spacing it would provide and some flexibility on the wing, maybe those pieces of the puzzle, as Jason likes to say, fit better together. With Garland's $43 million salary, like, it's tough to put those pieces together to match that, to equal what you actually are losing in Darius Garland. Now, and
another part of this, Mike, is also that Jared Allen's coming off arguably his best season.
And his value's the highest.
Whereas Darius Garland's coming off his worst season.
I did tell Jason yesterday, we talked on the phone, I was like, well, I had the same thought as you. Maybe it's not as likely that Allen's the guy who gets traded. Maybe it is DG now because of the chemistry that Atkinson and Allen has. But I think Jason's right in the big picture. A head coach is going to come in and reevaluate this roster. Right. And Jared Allen is not the same player he is today that he was in Brooklyn. And I'm sure the offensive scheme that Kenny Atkinson deploys in Cleveland, which will break down in about 5 minutes, will be a little tweaked and changed from what he did in Brooklyn 4 years ago. The NBA's changed a ton in 4 years, offensively and defensively. So some of the things that worked that he ran in Brooklyn, he'll probably have to tweak a little bit in Cleveland on a defensive standpoint, exactly the same. So they do have that built-in chemistry and the rapport, but I don't think that makes him safe. Same with Karis LeVert, by the way. Karis LeVert certainly isn't safe if he's in trade talks just because Kenny Atkinson's the head coach either.
To your initial question, I believe the Cavs want to see this through with these 4. They don't want to break. Like, I believe that part. Like, they do want to see this through. I also believe that there are outside forces that could work against them to prevent that from happening.
Darius's agent?
Agents get involved, player wishes, who wants to play with whom, that sort of thing. So forces beyond their control may dictate what they have to do. But, like, If you take that out of it and
Yeah.
just if the Cavs are evaluating their roster and how they want to move forward, I absolutely believe that they want to move forward with those 4 pieces intact. I'm not convinced it's going to be feasible.
Mike said just a minute ago he thinks they've proven that there's a ceiling to this group. And I've been, you guys know the basketball way better than I do, but I've been consistently like, you got to break it up, you got to break it up. And I've had a little bit of a second thought here that if you do have a better coach, JB did not run an offense, essentially, right? And the players were frustrated by his lack of creativity, and they lost faith in him. Do we know for sure what the ceiling of this team is? Because clearly, Evan Mobley, or I shouldn't say clearly, I think we're all pretty confident that Evan Mobley has not reached the ceiling of his talent.
Correct.
And you could even argue Darius Garland hasn't, at least not in the last 2 years. So if you could find a coach that could bring out the best of those guys, then maybe we don't know the ceiling of this group together for sure, because maybe this new coach, if he ends up being the right guy, can get more out of it, and then they can win at the highest level with this group.
Well, I think that's the point I've made a couple times, maybe in a poorly phrased way, of there's more in there with Evan. Now, how do you get to it? I don't know. They haven't gotten to it yet.
Does Kenny Atkinson have the answer? Maybe.
Maybe.
But we don't know.
And I think Mike probably has some footage to show you that maybe. And Darius and Donovan played fine together last year. This year did not go well, but last year the numbers were better.
Yeah.
So, and Darius has regressed. Ever since he signed the contract, he hasn't emerged as that player that they expect him to be. He certainly hasn't played like a $40 million player in the NBA. So that is why you have to wonder what more is there to get out of this. Certainly you have to feel like there's another gear or two to get out of it. The question is if Kenny Atkinson is the one to bring it out. And we're going to find out.
Can you get the most out of Evan and Darius or Donovan or Jarrett if they're all playing together?
Right.
Or do they have to be spread up and split up?
Right.
To then maximize, and it's more of the bigs in my opinion than the guards. Can Evan become the best version of Evan Mobley playing alongside another big who's not a shooter just because of spacing issues?
All right, so let's talk now about what Kenny Atkinson is going to bring to this team offensively. Do you have a read first, Anthony?
Yeah, I just want to remind everybody that before we break down the new coaching hire, that Mike and Jason are also going to be doing an extra Ultimate Cleveland Cavaliers show for the draft tomorrow.
Okay.
I don't know if Jason's joining me, but I definitely will be doing it tomorrow.
I thought it was both of you. That's my apologies.
Yeah.
I'm definitely
Mike
doing
is going to be doing
tomorrow,
a draft show.
Jason, you're more than welcome to join if you want, but you're usually busy on Wednesday
I'll probably
nights.
be busy.
Yeah. So we'll do that. We'll break down the Cavs pick, immediate live reaction after they make a pick at number 20, or if they trade up, trade down, we'll be there to give you all the information and immediate reaction.
So,
once
Mike,
that happens.
let's start with, and I know you said he's got to do things differently than he did in Brooklyn, but when he was in Brooklyn, the Nets consistently were near the top of three-point attempts and pace.
Yep.
Something that would be good to see with the Cavaliers.
Yeah.
Do you think he will be able to bring that here where he's got a lot more talent?
Yeah, when you look at what Kenny Atkinson has done from an offensive standpoint and the coaches he's coached with in the past, there's two main influences, especially on the offensive end of the court, that you see. He's worked with Mike D'Antoni, spacing, pacing, high pick and roll, spread the floor, and Coach Budenholzer, who focuses on shots at the rim and three-point attempts. And his overall philosophies, if you break down all the stuff from Brooklyn and what he's did, comes down to kind of these four pillars. Threes and layups, rebound and run. They run early offensive sets, and if that's not there, it flows right into a secondary set, and then pace and space. We want to run, and the floor is spread. We're going to break down some plays in a sec.
Explain what you mean
with
you say early offensive sets, and then the second. What do you mean?
You'll see
right,
in the film, but when they come down, it's not, hey, let's dribble down. Now there's 17 seconds on the shot clock. Let's get into an action.
We're dribble.
It is, we're throwing the ball up.
Yeah.
We're going. As I'm crossing half court, and you'll see the first play we break down is what they run early a lot, and then there's a couple counters off that.
Right.
We're getting right into it with about 19 seconds on the shot clock.
You want to get into it right away. If it's not there, then we reset in a way.
And it's not even necessarily a reset in the sense of let's pull the ball back out, call another play.
Yeah.
It's just the next option in the offense. It's a layered offensive attack, which fits modern basketball. And he just came off 2 years with Golden State. He spent some time with Ty Lue. Golden State is the pinnacle of pace and space and keep moving the ball movement. That's what they emphasize. So I'm sure all the stuff he did in Brooklyn, he did it in Atlanta beforehand. It was been only enhanced since his last 2 stints.
He's been in
the Clippers.
I mean, he's been in some great systems around great coaches.
Yeah. And some numbers about him, and you mentioned this a second ago. All 4 years in Brooklyn, they finished top 5 in the league in 3-point attempts. They finished top 9 in 3-point makes, and they finished top 11 in pace. All 4 years he was the head coach in Brooklyn. So they want to shoot threes. Steve, you take the next graphic, whatever you want, please. They shoot threes, they make threes, and they run. You talked about early offense. Let's show you guys a couple plays from the Kenny Atkinson playbook here as they dive in. This is essentially what they run in early offense, Bull. Simple reversal into a double stagger. And when you're watching these plays, try to envision Donovan Mitchell, Darius Garland, Max Strus, and some of the Cavs players running this action. This is the same set. It's a simple swing, reverse, and we're going to set a double stagger across. Bull, check the shot clock. They are in the paint driving with 15 seconds on the shot clock. There's no such thing as let's walk the ball up the court, call something out.
Everybody stands around.
It's immediately let's get
flow.
into
There's
it.
better flow to
exactly,
the offense.
exactly.
Yeah.
Pace and space is the word. It puts the defender who's trailing on the double stagger here in a really difficult position. You got to fight over 2 screens, and if you can fight over 2 screens, if they're set well, then you're kind of in a tough position if they run some counters, which we'll get to in a sec. This is going to loop around again. But a very basic, they called it motion strong. I'm not sure exactly where the terminology came from. But it's the same play over. Max Strus could be effective in this. Donovan Mitchell, I think, could thrive in a situation like this. You have Darius Garland come across, swing it. Here's Garland. You got Mitchell coming off a double stagger on the opposite side. And I'll show you in the next play what the counters are in the second levels to this. But it puts a defender in a really difficult position trying to trail 2 stagger screens and then get in front of a guy to keep him and close off the driving lane to deter him from going. So you can run this with a bunch of different players. Different guys can be effective. That's DeMarre Carroll who draws the foul there on the 3-point attempt. But it's pretty basic. It's nothing super intuitive. It's not something that other teams don't run. They just get into it quick and force you to guard for 24 seconds. Steve, if we go to the second video now, it's one of the counters off this. You see no guy in the corner here for a double stagger, so what do? All right, we're still going to move quick. We're just going to run a single stagger. D'Angelo Russell comes off. And now on the backside, you have a little pin down action while the entire front side of the court is open for a ball screen. That's a lot of space for 2 guys to work. Imagine Donovan Mitchell, Evan Mobley in that situation. You want to see Mobley as a facilitator. Yeah. That's an opportunity right here. Another, just a single stagger. Allen Crabbe comes off, grab, 3 shots from the free throw line right there. It's quick hitters. Here's another one. Similar action. It's the double stagger, except they don't do the ball reversal. Why does that make a difference? Well, the ball reversal keys the defense saying, hey, this is coming. We're not going to let you know it's coming this time. We're just going to run off. Look how far the defender's trailing Allen Crabbe on this play.
Right.
Coming off a double stagger. It's a wide open 3. That's what Miami did with Max Strus to a T time and time again. This is on loop now, so you'll see. But they have these different little counters off the same looking play bowl. So as you get into your defensive set, you can't anticipate what's coming because it happens so quickly.
Yeah, and if if you're getting into your offense quick, there's going to be times, as you said, where the defense is not ready.
Yeah.
Or maybe not expecting you to
Or it's cross-matched, and then you have a big trailing a guard on a screen.
That sounds all positive.
They also, and there's plenty more. I just picked a couple. We could spend, no joke, 4 hours on this. They also did have some 2 big sets in Brooklyn. It wasn't what they like to do, but they did run some sets with 2 guys.
Who was their other big guy with Jared?
Well, Jared came later. They had Quincy Acey. They had Timofey Mozgov. They had Rondé Hollis-Jefferson. And the next play I'm going to show you, it's Acey and Trevor Booker. This is called the Spain screen, which is essentially screen the screener. There are ways to get spacing with 2 bigs, and there are ways to utilize 2 bigs. It's a little go screen from Booker. Acey comes and screens the guy who is guarding Booker, which puts Jonathan Isaac in a 1-on-2 situation defensively, difficult to guard. Here's Jared Allen and Rondé Hollis-Jefferson. Not a screen the screener, but because Rondé Hollis-Jefferson, instead of clearing out all the way to the corner, he stops in the short corner right there. Aaron Gordon has to decide, do I give up the lob?
Yeah.
Or do I stay with Rondé Hollis-Jefferson? It puts him in a little pickle. He has to make a split-second decision. There are ways to utilize 2 bigs, and Atkinson has done it previously in Brooklyn with these 2 examples. In Golden State, they played Draymond Green and Kevin Looney together, which is another modern-day 2 non-shooting big lineup that he's shown ways that he can create space with. So I think from a basic, and once again, these are 3 of probably 75 plays in the Kenny Atkinson playbook. We can look at this for hours. I'll probably break down a few others on an Ultimate Cavs show later this week. He has ways to get the Cavs now with their current personnel into offensive sets more quickly, more efficiently, and the talent he did this with in Brooklyn is nowhere near the talent level that he'll have to work with the Cavaliers.
Jason, when we know Kenny Atkinson can bring up a team that doesn't have a lot of talent, right? That year, I think it was his first year.
That was
when
all
the Cavs traded Kyrie Irving, and
his first year in Brooklyn was 16,
17.
Yeah.
16,
okay, 17. So second year, right? He had a team with no talent. The Cavs got the draft pick from the Nets.
Yeah. He screwed them. They won too many games.
We all thought, they'd have the top lottery. It doesn't mean you're going to get it, but you thought. They ended up being a pretty representative
28
team.
games, yeah.
When you thought they'd be the worst team in the NBA.
And they were in 50 games that year.
Right.
That were
and they just
considered
had no,
clutch.
and they had no talent.
They had D'Angelo Russell was their best
Right.
player. And when you watch those plays, like that was D'Angelo Russell and Allen Crabbe and Joe Harris.
Right.
I mean, if you switch those three players with Mitchell, Garland, Strus, or if you trade one of those for a wing and add a legitimate wing scorer to the threat, like those actions should create a ton of good
And
looks.
didn't Joe Harris have like a great year with him?
He's a player development guy. Joe Harris had the best season of his career with him. D'Angelo Russell had the best season of his career with him. Spencer Dinwiddie had the best season of his career. He helped turn Al Horford and Brook Lopez into shooters, which plays right into the Evan Mobley or even Jared Allen discussion.
But he's coming into a very different team here, Jason.
Yeah.
Not a team just looking to compete. They're looking to compete for a title.
Yeah.
Or at least an Eastern Conference title. So I think that's the question. We know he can coach a talentless team and get them up. But we don't know about this.
And there, a lot of times coaches are broken into coach on a bad team.
Right.
You're the rebuild guy.
Yeah.
And now and that was Atkinson
right.
at one time. That was him in Brooklyn. He was the rebuild guy. And then they threw him out and they brought in Steve Nash, and that was a disaster.
Yes.
But now he's got the other opportunity of being the contending guy.
Yeah.
And we'll see how he does with it.
Yeah.
It's a much different job. It's much different pressure that comes with it. And yes, and I've heard that he's a player development guy. This is not, and Evan Mobley needs to be developed.
Yes.
And Darius needs to improve.
It's not a player development job.
This is not a player development job.
This is a win now job.
Yes. This is you have to win games. You have to win playoff games. It goes back to the ATO conversation that we had where I thought JB struggled at times.
Yeah.
You have to know when to use timeouts. You got to know how to get them a play. What's your bread and butter play that you're going to go to when you need it in moments. It's a much different job than a job with no expectations and little talent. And if you win 28 games or 30 games, that's considered a success.
You got what you're saying is 100% right. But I'm not worried about how many games they win in the regular season next year, right? I mean, we don't care about that. And yes, they do. Do you think Kenny Atkinson does? I mean, I don't know. They've got to win when it matters, and they've got to have the team ready. So, Evan, I think this year it is imperative to develop Evan Mobley, even if that potentially cost them some regular season wins. In my opinion,
I've said that for years.
Yeah.
So it's okay to punt a couple games here and there,
right?
If you're getting something out of it.
What does it matter if they win 46 in the regular season?
I think
51?
we have to let it play. What you don't want to be. Like LeBron used to take it to the extreme. You don't want to be
the 6th seed
in the play-in tournament.
Yeah, right. Sure.
You want to, and we just have to see. First of all, we have to see what the roster looks like.
Yeah.
And we have to see how the season unfolds and see who's where and where the seedings are falling.
Yeah.
But I'm not circling a number of they have to win this number of games in the regular season for it to be a success.
I don't trust the Cavs yet to be able to turn the switch on and just turn it on and say, okay, we're good now.
Yeah.
And with a new coach and a new roster, like it takes games to figure out what works.
Right.
So you may start a little slow just trying to figure out the offensive and defensive scheme that the Cavs are trying to run and how players fit into it and how the chemistry develops and if it's the same core four back or it's broken up, whatever that is. It'll take time to develop, but they have to be playing their best basketball later in the season as opposed to this year where they limped into the postseason and then had a 7-game war with
But
Orlando.
in the end, they played better in the playoffs the year they limped into the postseason as opposed to the year before where they didn't limp into the postseason, right?
In terms of beating Orlando and playing. Yeah, I mean,
they were better this postseason than last.
If they played like they did against Orlando and played the Knicks from last year, I think they lose 4-1 again.
I mean, okay, maybe, but I still think they played better against Orlando than they did against the Knicks the year before. No?
I hear what Mike's saying. I think
Probably both.
They went up 2-0 at home, and they're not even playing that well.
They're not playing great. No, that's true.
So, and then in the Boston series, they were so outmanned. They just played really hard, and credit to them. Like, they competed. They played hard in that series.
Yeah.
But ultimately, I wouldn't say that they beat the doors off with the way they played in the postseason.
No, certainly not.
It took 7
but ultimately,
games to
they got to another series, which they did in the year before. But again, there has to be at least some level of balance, because you know how we talk about, the Browns have a good roster, right? And as currently constituted, we know the Browns are a playoff contender.
Yep.
But whether or not they're a Super Bowl contender has almost solely to do with how good Deshaun Watson is. Mm-hmm. If Deshaun Watson's back to being a great player, the Browns were a Super Bowl contender. If he's as slappy as he's been the last 2 years, they're not a Super Bowl contender. You can con yourself into believing they are, but they're not. And to me, with the Cavs, it's about Evan Mobley. Like, you said, we know what they are, we know what their ceiling is, but we don't, because we don't know what Evan Mobley's ceiling is.
That's fair.
If Evan Mobley can become the player that you guys have described as a unicorn, well, then maybe this current roster can win a championship if he can get to that level. And so I don't think we know what this group is capable of necessarily until we know how good he can be. And so they have to, if they're going to raise their ceiling without making any significant trades, it's got to be on the back of Mobley, that he's got to significantly improve. So if that means it costs you some in the regular season, I think you got to do it, because you got to know how good he can be.
You've asked Donovan Mitchell point blank before. Would you ever
punt a game?
I forgot the terminology. Would you ever punt a game to let someone else step up?
To send a message.
Donovan told you no, but then this year it felt like at the end of the Indiana game late in the season, he was okay kind of being the decoy and letting Karras and Darius be the two that kind of led him down the stretch. So we'll see if next season maybe that was a progression, because you asked him his first year here.
Yeah.
He said no.
He said, I have to win every game I play.
Yeah.
Second year, he seemed a little more receptive to the idea, so maybe year 3 here, there's even more progression in terms of Donovan, in terms of that level of his leadership.
And maybe he has more faith in Evan after the way Evan played against Boston. Yeah. Who knows? Go ahead.
We're going to do his defensive stuff in a sec, Atkinson. But real quick, on terms of the offensive playbook, what'd you think of seeing some of those sets and how the Cavs' current personnel would fit into what he wants to do?
Actually, it's funny, because as I was watching those clips, my first thought was going back to the conversation we had about Dan Hurley, because Dan is very intricate in what he runs, and it's very complex with what he runs offensively. This is not. This is like a guys, because I remember saying, like, NBA guys aren't going to run what Hurley wants to run. They're not going to do that. But they'll run this. Like, it's motion, it's movement, it's going to create open looks, but it's not so complex that guys are going to say, we're not going to run that. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it's a lot of, we're going to run an open set. You get the ball where you want. All right, now there's a secondary option, but there's also a backside pick and roll you can go out of and kind of just play back.
By the way, it does make total sense, although in a way it's insane that players would not try to do something different, that they're so stuck in their ways.
They're not going to do it. They're not going to do it.
That's stupid, and it's a detriment to them as players and a team.
It's part of the reason why I think you don't see anyone run the Princeton offense anymore, because they
don't want to cut.
Yeah, it takes so much patience, and it's so disciplined. And Byron Scott tried to run the Princeton when he first got here, and that team had no talent. And that was 15 years ago. Nobody runs it anymore,
right?
Because they just don't want to do it. You can't. I don't think you can get them to buy in to do it, so they just don't do it anymore.
Something I hate about basketball.
Yeah,
that's only.
So you have to make it. You have to make it fun for them.
Right. It is what it is.
And you have to create options for them without overcomplicating it.
Right.
Does that make sense?
Yes, it does. I mean, it's unfortunate that that's the case, but it is what it is, and I think that's because they're all playing AAU ball. There's no practice, and it's all. Guys just, whatever. It doesn't matter. I don't need to get up on the soapbox.
Part of it is also like, now we're the old guys screaming.
Yeah, right.
And
exactly.
just like they screamed about our generation. Just in baseball, the guys will say no one knows how to hit anymore. All they do is swing for the fences and hit home runs.
Yeah.
They've lost the art of hitting. So
and
part
football
of it is
too. They're not tough. And, But anyway, go ahead, Mike.
You want to talk a little bit about the defensive side of the ball, what Atkinson brings from that standpoint?
Let's hit that. Yeah.
I'm curious on this.
Yeah.
So he worked as Coach Budenholzer in Atlanta, and his defense is very, very similar to what the Bucks ran in Milwaukee. And before we get into the philosophies, the numbers, and the breakdown, part of what made that defense in Milwaukee so dominant, and I'm talking dominant, top 5 in the league almost every year he was there, they had a rim protector, in Brook Lopez, and they had Giannis play the free safety essentially from the 4 position, which mirrors a Jared Allen, Evan Mobley pairing. And I would argue right now, today, as of 11:44 on June 25th, Evan Mobley's best skill set, his best single skill, is ability to muck stuff up defensively as a help side defender.
Right.
In that Giannis role in this defense, I think he could be an absolute freaking menace. His philosophies. Yeah. And you're going to see a lot of pairings and a lot of similarities between what Atkinson does defensively and Coach Budenholzer do defensively. But his main principle is he wants to force mid-range jump shots and pull-up jumpers. He wants you to take the shots.
Not efficient.
Exactly. He wants you to take the shots he wants you to take. He does not want you to take the shots that you want to take. They go under on a ton of screens. They play drop coverage as maximum level you can. We'll show you some clips. Wait till you see where Jared Allen and DeAndre Jordan are hanging out in some of these. And they help off bad shooters. They do what the Celtics and the Magic did to Isaac Okoro for 82 games during the regular season, which is not commonplace throughout the league.
Going under on screens is risky, and guys got to play with a lot of intensity defensively.
It does, and it requires buy-in.
Yes.
But for the most part, and these are all clips from his days in Brooklyn, and he was the defensive coordinator in Golden State, and I can't wait to talk to the Locked On Warriors reporter in a sec to see if they mirrored those same strategies in Golden State like they did in Brooklyn. But most guys are better standstill, feet-set shooters than they are off the dribble, even though today's day and age of shooters are better than they were 4 years ago when he was coaching in Brooklyn. So some numbers to keep in mind when we're talking about this. In the last season, he was the coach of the Nets, 19-20. They went under 13.5 screens per game. That was second most in the NBA behind Coach Bud in Milwaukee. When they went under, they allowed less than 1 point per possession. When you look at the all-time rankings, that ranks in the 70th percentile. And they ranked second in the NBA that season in preventing shots at the rim. So they want you to shoot threes. They want you to shoot, or not really threes, they want you to shoot pull-up threes and mid-range jumpers. They're okay giving up floaters and all that. Let's go to the video, Steve. We're talking about drop coverage. We talked about this all the time. Look how far Jared Allen sags down on some of these plays. I mean, they are absolutely begging Joe Ingles there to take a mid-range jumper or a floater. When he's that deep, it's hard to make a bounce pass in the pocket. It's hard to get that deep. Here's DeAndre Jordan doing the same thing, forcing our guy George Niang there, by the way, to take a floater. This is against the Suns. DeAndre Jordan just sitting in the paint because he's back there. He's already in perfect help position for a Devin Booker weak side cut. You see the Nets defender there go under the screen, which we'll talk about in a sec. But if you can't shoot, they're not going to guard you. They're going to beg your center, if he's not a great mid-range shooter, to take those shots time after time. They are so comfortable giving that up. Now, more shooters today than in 2020 can shoot. However, that is a shot they are willing to give up on a regular basis. This drop coverage is as far as you're going to see across any level of basketball, and the Jazz center right there is not a shooter, which allows them to play so far off. They go under a ton of screens, Steve. We'll go to the next clip when you get a sec. They go under everything up top. This was a scrappy Nets team. This team fought hard as can be to get under and around screens. You can see the drop coverage there, same thing.
Oh, but he didn't go under a screen there.
Yes, he did.
Yeah, he did.
Another, under the screen, drop coverage. Force the shooter to take a pull-up three. Not great hustle there, not great effort, but you're going to live and die with the percentages of these guys who aren't great shooters off the dribble taking these shots. Fakes goes under, forces DeJounte Murray to take a pull-up mid-range.
Gotcha.
They want you to take the shots that they want you to take. They're trying to force you into specific shots. Here's Karis LeVert, goes under twice on the same screen, pulls it back out. Now they're in man-to-man coverage. Force a tough shot. I think he's going to kick it out here, and then take a end of shot clock heave. They're going to go under everything.
He goes under. They go under because they want you to shoot. Exactly. They don't want you to be, because if you go over,
then it goes 2-on-1 on the opposite side. Exactly.
Then it gets to the basket.
And their main goal is to prevent shots at the rim.
Right.
That's the main goal of this whole defense. This is Jaylen Brown here in a bunch of different sequences. In the 2020 season, this is what these clips are from. He shot 36% from three. He was 29% from three off the dribble. So that's the percentages that Kenny Atkinson and this Nets defense is playing. And then the last clip, Steve, the very last one here that we're going to break down. They help off bad shooters. It doesn't matter, strong side, weak side. That's Markelle Fultz here. It's going to go back in, and they're going to post up Vucevic. Watch LeVert. It's like, Markelle Fultz, please shoot the ball. We're begging you to take that shot. Right. I don't care if it's not the right help position to be in. They are going to help off the worst shooter on the court, strong side, weak side, and force, once again, you don't want Romeo Langford in this instance, a 22% shooter on the season, to be the guy who's open on the rotation. So they're going to help off him. It's exactly what teams did to Isaac Okoro. They're just doing it for 82 games throughout the regular season. It doesn't matter where the player's position on the court. for a majority of their defensive possessions, at least the ones I watched yesterday, they were sending help from the worst shooter.
Right.
And
that forces either a bad shot against the double team
or a pass to the bad shooter. Exactly. And it's
just
just confusing. You expect help in certain situations.
Right.
It's like if you're playing cover 2 defense, you have an idea of where the defender's going to be.
Right.
When you mix it up constantly, depending on where your shooter is, the offense has to adjust. Here they're going against Donovan Mitchell and the Jazz.
And you don't expect to have a guy wide open in the NBA. It's weird. And sometimes guys get antsy about that, especially if they're not good shooters.
If they're not competent. We saw
and it's worked against the Cavs.
Exactly.
No doubt.
So those are some basic principles and pillars of what Kenny Atkinson did defensively in Brooklyn. I'm curious to see, and I haven't broken down the Golden State film, how much he did differently from Brooklyn to Golden State, but hopefully that gives people out there a better idea of what Kenny Atkinson wants to do offensively and defensively now as the head coach of the Cavs.
So overall, how are we feeling about Kenny Atkinson?
I think it's fine.
Yeah.
I think, but I want to.
Specifically on my.
Yeah. Shooters love when you go under on screens. So I'm surprised. I didn't realize, I guess, how much.
Jason,
like to go
I want you to read this from my notes. You could read this in my notes. And I just want Jason, so you guys know I'm not making this up.
I do have some concerns. This worked in 2017 to 20. Shooters are better today. That was my point than they were 4 years ago. More guys can pull up off the dribble with ease and accuracy. However, most still see a pretty good drop in percentage off the dribble versus standing still.
Well, you might need to do a deep dive into the Warriors tape to see if he changed his philosophy at all.
I only had a couple hours yesterday.
Well, that's unacceptable.
I know, but I will. But that is a legit concern as well.
All right, we're bringing on a guest here in just a couple of minutes. But let's spend a couple of minutes on the Browns here, and then we'll get back to the our guest covers the Golden State Warriors for the Locked On podcast, and then we'll spend the rest of the hour after that talking about the Guardians, starting at about 12:15. But guys, so Lonnie Phelps, and that's not a made-up name, was an undrafted player who got a DUI and then was cut the next day. And Anthony asked the question to us. Do you get the feeling the Browns are running a more no-nonsense attitude this offseason? And I would say this is proof of nothing.
I would agree with you.
Yeah.
This is proof of, depending on what you bring and what your potential
is,
right. determines how long the leash is that you have.
The odds of Lonnie Phelps making the roster were probably like 1%.
Yeah.
Even if he made it, he would have been the last guy in his position group. I don't even know what position he played. What was
defensive end?
Yeah, I mean, he wasn't making this team. Even if he did, he would be the last guy, and the odds are.
What a terrible decision maker. What a terrible decision maker.
Yeah.
You're barely holding on to what little claim you have in the NFL.
Right.
And then, nobody's going to pick him up after that.
I don't buy that the Browns are running any kind of no-nonsense, tougher situation here.
No.
In any way. Certainly this is not proof of anything because this guy's a nobody. If Myles Garrett had done the same thing.
They're not releasing him tomorrow.
And I shouldn't even say Myles Garrett. Even if it's a guy who's just like
Agbo.
Yeah, they're not cutting him. They're not cutting anybody that can help them because of this. They're not. They cut him because why bother? He wasn't going to make the team anyway.
This may be an inconsequential player.
Yeah.
In terms of the action and reaction to which the Browns acted. I do like the swift action coming from the Browns in this regard, though. I mean, we saw it a little bit last year with Perrion Winfrey when that video came out, and they said thank you, but no thank you. We're going to move on. Does it change?
I thought they took too long with Winfrey.
Well, this was quicker than Perrion Winfrey.
Oh yeah,
Perrion took a day and a half.
Any
this took
team
about
in the
4
NFL
hours.
would have probably done the same thing with a guy like this.
I get that. I'm just saying I do like the fact that they took swift action. This saying, hey, even if you're, I don't want to call someone an inconsequential player, but if you're essentially a nobody, a practice squad guy, a guy who's most likely not going to make the roster. We're just not going to put up with it. We're not going to deal with the headaches. We have bigger issues to fry.
They are going to do that. And you said even if you are. Well, that doesn't make any sense. Those are the guys who are going to be they are going to put up with it. The better you are, the more they put up with.
No, I'm not saying they're not. Maybe I phrased that wrong.
Yeah.
I'm saying even though it was a guy who probably wasn't going to make the final roster anyway.
Yeah.
It happened. They're like, nope, don't want to deal with it. Bye.
Right.
It was an immediate reaction,
Yeah.
and you could think the timing doesn't matter or whatever. We saw last year Perrion Winfrey. It played out a little bit. We spent a day and I believe a day and a half, and don't quote me on that, but I believe it was a day and a half from when we played that video the morning of the show.
Right.
To then the next day we had to do a segment on Perrion Cut. This was literally Happen in the morning, 4 o'clock, bye-bye.
Well, Perrion, unlike this guy, was drafted, right? So it's a little different.
Seventh round pick,
there was
though.
No, Winfrey wasn't a seventh. Winfrey was like a third or fourth.
No.
Fourth. Yeah, he was.
No, he wasn't.
Yeah, he was. Yeah, he was like.
I think he was a mid-round pick.
I think he was a fourth. But obviously, they felt like there was a little bit of potential there with him.
Right.
And
he was a 4th-round pick. My bad. Hand up. Sorry.
He was always there. He was always into something. It felt like. And it's. I remember having that conversation on the show. Like, why are you putting up with this? Why?
Right.
Why are you dealing with this? So I think that furthers the point of if you have any sort of potential at all, and they see something in you, they're going to put up with a little bit of nonsense.
Exactly, because that wasn't the first thing he did.
No.
He's the guy who was a clown coming in. We knew that.
Yeah.
But and that's it. So the lower you are down the food chain in any sport,
the less tolerance they have.
Yes. So this is not kudos. I'm not knocking the Browns.
Right.
But I'm not going to give them props for this because to me it's meaningless.
Yeah.
I just can't believe that you leave camp and they say, "Don't be an idiot."
And the first thing
first thing you do when you know and listen, I don't know Lonnie Phelps at all. He had to understand his situation on this team as a practice squad guy. Last year, he had to understand that if he was going to make this 53-man roster, he was going to have a hell of a camp, a hell of a preseason, a hell of an OT. Like, everything had to go his way. And you know what's on the line.
Yeah.
And you know what's at stake. And you still do something like this. It's more disappointing than anything else.
Jason, I know you did a show with Jeff Phelps yesterday. This is his cousin, apparently. No.
I don't know where you're going with that.
No, that would be funny if it were his cousin. I'm guessing it's not.
No, I'm guessing it's not.
No. How did it go yesterday with Jeff?
It was fine.
Have you ever done a show with Jeff before?
Years ago.
Oh, okay.
Years ago. I think one other time. I think that was our second time together.
All right.
Ever.
Very good.
Where's the cutoff before we move on? Where's the cutoff of player that if this happened to the Browns would not have released immediately?
Most of the players they would not have released immediately.
Agreed.
Because it's not a serious enough offense. If there was a player that had, if it was a guy who they thought
David Bell,
I don't think they would have cut him.
No.
So lower than David Bell.
Yes.
Yeah,
you got to get back
Hakeem Adeniji.
I don't even know who that is. So
no,
probably.
they would not have cut him. He's their third tackle. He's their swing tackle.
I don't even know who that is. Is it really?
He's a veteran free agent.
Name.
He actually played for the Bengals in the Super Bowl.
Oh, that's why you know.
But he's
him.
not very
I'm
good.
Like, how do you know this guy? And I've never heard of him. Well, that's why. He's
there
from
it
the
is.
Bengals.
All right, let's get. But we'll get to the Guardians in about 15 minutes. Let's get back to the Cavaliers as Anthony brings in our guest. Go ahead, Anthony.
Yeah, guys. Before I bring in our guest, I want to remind everybody that everybody watching, I love sports. I love them so much I never want them to stop. But as the playoffs wind down, we get fewer games, and the sports aren't sportsing like I want them to. But FanDuel lets me keep the sports going whenever I want. All I have to do is open the app and dream up some bets anytime I'm in the mood. This summer, FanDuel is hooking up all customers with a bonus boost daily. That's right, there's something for everyone every day, all summer long. So head over to FanDuel.com/UCSS and start making the most out of your summer. FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of Major League Baseball.
Nobody believes you.
No, not at all. Not
I
a single
try to
person.
sell
He
it.
didn't read the bold. He didn't read the bold letters, though. Come on, give him credit.
You didn't read the bold letters.
You didn't read the bold letters.
That's true. That was
I
improvement
learned from
there.
my first mistake.
No, nobody believes you. You have
All
to
right.
put more effort into that.
Do we have our guest?
We do have our guest. If you want to bring her in, Steve?
Hi, Kylen.
Hey, how's it going?
We are doing well. This is Kylen Mills. She's the host of the Locked On Warriors podcast, and she covered Kenny Atkinson for the last 2 years before he came to the Cleveland Cavaliers. Kylen, what can you tell us about Kenny Atkinson and who the Cavs are getting as their next head coach here?
I think this is a great hire for the Cleveland Cavaliers, guys. I think that fans and members of the media should be excited about Kenny Atkinson. First of all, within the Warriors organization, there's a ton of respect for Kenny Atkinson. Around the NBA, there's a ton of respect for Kenny Atkinson. And everything that I've heard is that everyone is really happy for him and really excited to see him take this next step and get another opportunity to be a head coach. Because I think we all know the way that things ended with the New York Nets was unfortunate, maybe not necessarily Kenny's fault, and that the star power came in and didn't have his back despite the job that he did there, taking the Nets from being a 20-win team to a 42-win team, a playoff team. And for a Cleveland team that has a number of young stars, and there's overlap with some of those young guys he also brought in and helped mentor with the New York Nets, I think this makes complete sense. During his time with the Golden State Warriors, he had the opportunity to learn from one of the greatest coaches, at least in what's regarded in a lot of circles as one of the greatest coaches in the NBA, in Steve Kerr. He got to be a part of a championship run in 2022. He got to see what it takes from step one, from day one, through winning that title. And so I think that is going to be huge for him moving forward and figuring out exactly how he wants to shape this Cleveland team. The other thing is, I think this is going to be a really exciting style of play. Back with the Nets, pace and space were two keys of Kenny Atkinson's offense. There is some overlap with that type of offense and what the Golden State Warriors do and what they have done the last couple seasons. It's no secret the Warriors shoot the three ball a ton. They also like to push the pace, or at least they have in the past. These last couple years, it's been a little bit of a struggle since the 2022 title run as the Warriors are getting older. But back with the Nets during his couple of seasons when he was able to turn that organization around and that team around, they were top 5 in threes taken and threes made. I think that there are some similarities in what he probably was able to take away from the Warriors. And I'll be curious to see what he's able to implement and what he takes away from Steve Kerr's offense. A lot of movement on and off the ball, a lot of cross screening, multiple screens happening at the same time. It's a fun offense to watch. So I'm very curious what he's able to do with this young core. You look at the backcourt and Donovan Mitchell, you've got some guards that have the speed and the opportunity, and they can get out and transition. So I'm curious to see just how fast paced this offense is, how much they're going to look to use the three ball. And I think that you will see some layers of the Warriors offense in what he brings to Cleveland.
I wanted to ask you more about the culture of Golden State and how Kenny would impact or be impacted by that, because I just know, talking to Mike Brown, and what a different coach he was leaving Golden State than he was when he walked in there. What is it about Steve and the Warriors culture that is so different that it sort of changes these coaches in the way, not even necessarily the X's and O's, but just the way that they view the game after they leave?
The culture with the Golden State Warriors is something special. It's something you don't see around the NBA. You hear it from the players when they're talking to the media all the time. This is a player-driven organization. It is a place that players want to be. That's why the Warriors are able to bring in free agents. They're able to sell guys from around the league because of the special culture that Steve Kerr has built, and it starts at the top with Joe Lacob as well. But in terms of being a player-led organization, Steve Kerr talks to his vets. He regularly has conversations with Steph Curry, with Draymond Green, about the direction of the team, about decisions being made, who's going to start, who's going in and out of the lineup. During key moments, the players are a part of those critical conversations, and I think they take a sense of ownership in the team because of that. Also, you just look at the way that this organization celebrates and welcomes in players. Something you hear a lot from new free agents who join the organization is the way they treat the families, the way they bring them into the circle, the way it is a family culture. It's something the Warriors have prided themselves on. And hopefully that's something that Kenny Atkinson is able to take away. Steve Kerr is very good at developing relationships with his players, and then, like I said, giving them a sense of ownership over what's happening with the team. He does have key conversations. He takes the opinions of a lot of his respected veterans really seriously and allows them to be a part of the decision-making process. I think that goes a long way with some players, and I will be very curious to see what happens with Donovan Mitchell's future. But if you're a vet and you're thinking about staying with an organization and you're looking at a coach who's going to come in and be a player coach, it's something that was even said about Kenny Atkinson back when he was with the New York Nets. It's something that Karis LeVert has said about Kenny Atkinson, is that he's a player's coach. And that's the same thing that the Golden State Warriors say about Steve Kerr. He's a player's coach. He has an open door. He has those conversations with key members of his team about big decisions and critical moments in games and the direction of the organization. And they feel a sense of ownership over the team. They feel like they're a part of what's happening and the direction moving forward. And if I'm a veteran, or if I'm a key player on this Cleveland Cavaliers team, that's music to my ears. You want to be a part of the direction. You want to be a part of the decision-making. You want to feel like your voice is heard. And that's one thing that players across the board say about Steve Kerr.
It is amazing how good an organization they've been, because the Warriors for years had been a terrible organization. I mean, they had that run with like Chris Mullin and Mitch Richmond and
Run TMC.
And Hardaway, right, where they were really good, but they had no big guys. And then they just sucked forever, and now they're great. And they're obviously well run and well organized, except when Draymond Green's punching teammates in the face. Outside of that, but it did seem like, Kylen, it did seem like there was a point last year where maybe Steph Curry was kind of a little, I don't want to say done, maybe that's the wrong word, but was getting frustrated by Draymond's inability to at times control himself on the court. Was that the case, or did I misread that situation?
There was definitely frustration, not just from Steph Curry, but across the organization with some of Draymond Green's antics. I mean, it gets to the point, well, this is an organization and teammates who have supported Draymond Green throughout his career. They've accepted that some of the fieriness that you see on the court and the competitiveness that you like also can lead to him going too far with some of the antics, some of the unnecessary fouling, the intentional fouls, the ejections, putting Rudy Gobert in a headlock. Yeah. Some of that does come with his fiery competitiveness, but at some point, he is a veteran in the NBA. He knows the ways that the referees are going to be calling him, and they're going to be looking at him because of his history. The NBA's come out and said it. So at some point, you have to have a level of awareness. There was absolutely frustration from Steph Curry. You saw it on his face in talking to the media after Draymond Green's last ejection, which led to him stepping away from the organization for a period of time. Absolutely, there was frustration beyond just Steph Curry, but from the top down in this organization where they finally sat down and said, listen, Draymond, something has to change. This has been going on for years. It's not something new, but it's to the point where you've got to get it in check and get your emotions under control, especially when you know the way the league is going to be calling you and the way the referees are going to be looking at you, and any little thing could put yourself in jeopardy and ultimately put the team in jeopardy. Certainly there was frustration from Steph Curry. Another layer of Steph Curry this year, I think, was just that he was tired. He was exhausted, and that goes beyond the Draymond Green conversation, but he needs help. The Warriors did not have a secondary score reliable, at least anyway. Klay Thompson moving past his prime, in my opinion. So I think that there was frustration from Steph Curry on a number of levels, but certainly Draymond Green was a big factor.
Kylen, we spent a few minutes earlier breaking down what Kenny Atkinson did defensively in Brooklyn as the head coach. I know he was the defensive coordinator in Golden State the last few years. When he was in Brooklyn, they went under on almost every high ball screen. They played a tremendous amount of drop coverage. It's the Mike Budenholzer defense, essentially. I didn't get a chance to go through what he did necessarily the last 2 years in Golden State as the defensive coordinator. Did he do some of the same principles that he had done as the Brooklyn head coach in Golden State, or was it more him kind of filling in what the Warriors have been doing the last essentially decade under Steve Kerr defensively with the title of defensive coordinator?
Yeah, I think it was more so just going along with what the Warriors had been doing. But to be honest, the Warriors defense from top to bottom has been a mess the last 2 seasons. They've been in the bottom half, bottom third, even lower than that in defensive efficiency throughout the last 2 years since they won the 2022 title. In terms of how they defend ball screens, I mean, I couldn't tell you because it was such a mess. The perimeter defending, not good for the Golden State Warriors the last couple of years. Like, it's not even like there was a clear MO. Hey, we're doing this. Hey, we're going to hedge screens. Hey, we're going to... I mean, it didn't even look like there was a game plan. There was just a lot of disorganization defensively. So this is one area where I'm not maybe going to get Cleveland fans excited about seeing Kenny Atkinson come, because that was where there was some frustration from both fans, within the team as well, in terms of the way they were performing defensively. It was not up to the standards of this Golden State Warriors team through that 2022 title run. At least these last 2 regular seasons, the numbers were not there. They weren't nearly where they were at. Transition defense was a disaster. There were a number of issues defensively that need to still be ironed out for the Golden State Warriors. So maybe a little bit of a level of concern considering that Kenny Atkinson was indeed in charge of the defense, but there was a considerable drop-off after Mike Brown left the organization. And it's something a number of media members and fans have been scratching their heads as to why, because I don't think a lot of the principles changed as you're talking about bringing in, different ways to defend ball screens or going under in that type of defense. That wasn't necessarily what we saw, but to be honest, it was a mess. It was a mess, especially the perimeter defending. It just was not good.
I'd love to hear that.
No, that's not great. Let's wrap it up with this, which has nothing to do with Kenny Atkinson. Even though obviously the Warriors have been a much more successful franchise than the Cavs, the Cavs do have, of course, the one championship where the Warriors were up 3-1, as you know. I don't have to repeat that. But are the players, are the fans, even though you won a ton, still bitter about the Cavs rallying, kicking their ass 3 straight games, and winning that series as we celebrated our first city championship in a very, very, very long time? What do you say? What do you think? People still angry?
Why you got to touch that nerve? Why you got to do that to me?
You guys won a ton of championships. We can't feel sorry for you.
I will say the fan base is maybe taking it better than the players, but if you know just how competitive Steph Curry, Klay Thompson, Draymond Green are, there is absolutely still bitterness. There is absolutely still a little bit of salt in the wound if you bring that up, because it has come up. And you go back to the last couple of runs that they've made in the playoffs, and there's times where they're down in series and you hear it be asked about in the media, like, hey, going back to that Cavs series, what did you learn? What did you take away from trying to close out a series rather than let it slip away is what happened. And the players, when they talk about it, they are still salty 100%. As for the fan base, I guess 4 titles, winning cures all, right? Have allowed them to move on from it maybe a little bit better than the players. But for the players, like, that's something that sticks in your mind and stays with you because of how close the Warriors were to getting a 5th title. I don't know that Steph Curry needs to cement his legacy further, but hey, 5 wouldn't hurt. So it's definitely something that if you ask the players about, because it has come up in post-game media sessions, they're not happy. They're not happy about it. They're, like I said, there's definitely still a level of saltiness there. I think the fans have moved on better than the players have.
Good.
I was going to yell at Bull for asking so many Warriors questions, and now I'm going to ask a Warriors question. So screw it. 30 seconds. Klay Thompson looks like he's played his last game for the Warriors. Is that I don't know which camera I'm at. Is that fair? You think is he gone? It certainly looks that way.
My take is that Klay Thompson is gone. I think he's going to move on. With every day that passes, the Warriors and Klay Thompson are getting farther away from reaching a deal. I think there's a level of hurt feelings for Klay Thompson because of the contracts that some of the players have gotten leading up to him. The reports out there, the Warriors haven't offered him a contract. If they have or if they will, it's going to be a 2-year contract, and he wants more. It's the length of time, not the dollar amount, that is what Klay Thompson is hung up on. And you look just a year ago, Draymond Green got a 4-year deal. So I think he's looking at himself and saying, well, why not me? I'm a member of this big 3. I'm just as big a part of what this organization has built. I want the longevity in my contract. Why am I not getting it? Him unfollowing the Warriors, I do read into that. I think there is a level of hurt feelings, and I think that Klay Thompson is going to be on his way out.
Damn. Kylen, we appreciate it. Thanks for the insight. Thank you for joining us. We appreciate your time.
Thanks, Kylen.
Yeah, thanks so much for having me. It's fun. Appreciate it. And we'll be very excited to watch the Cleveland Cavaliers, which I haven't been able to say a lot the last couple years, at least anyway.
Yeah.
Getting there in the playoffs, but
we'll
still going to be very curious to see how Kenny Atkinson redirects this team.
Thank you, Kylen.
Thank you, Kylen.
We appreciate it.
That was Warriors Hour. That was a lot of Warriors questions.
It was 2 Warriors questions.
I only asked 4.
Wait a second. First of all, it was only 1 Warrior. The second one was about celebrating the Cavs championship.
It's still Warriors.
No, I love to hear that they're still bitter about it.
I know better.
I bet you our fans love that the players are still bitter about that.
Yeah, I know.
There you go.
I'm just messing.
And I'm just curious about Draymond because he's the guy. He's the ultimate. If he's on your team, you love him. If he's not on your team, you hate him. There's no better example in modern sports than Draymond Green. Yeah. Like I hate the guy's guts. If he had been a Cav, loved him. Loved him.
I love Draymond. He's a great quote. Like I love talking.
That's
to him.
fair. That's fair.
For my purposes, he's great.
Yeah.
He'll say anything.
What you said about being the ultimate, if he's on your team, you love him. If he's not, you hate him. I don't think there's ever been a player in sports that fits that to a team more than Draymond Green.
Dennis Rodman.
Dennis Rodman wasn't out there throwing haymakers and slapping dudes upside the face.
Oh, yeah.
On a night. Not on a night-to-night basis like Draymond.
Well, I mean, Draymond's not doing it on a nightly
Bill
basis.
Bill Laimbeer back in the day.
Bill Laimbeer.
Yeah, people hate.
There used to be a lot of guys like that in the NBA.
Did Rodman
now the
ever
league's so
knock out his
soft,
own
there's
teammate,
not. He doesn't. Draymond would have been amazing in the '80s.
Actually, you know what? Ant makes a good point. You may hate him if you're his teammate too. Like, he could just cold clock you at any given minute. Yeah, and great point.
That's some family. That's an abusive family. By the way.
That's a great point, Ant.
All right, let's talk some Guardians.
Yeah,
Anthony,
let's do it. And if you guys don't get enough Guardians in the next 45 minutes, you can always check out the Ultimate Guardians every Monday with Bull and Zach. They just covered how we swept the Blue Jays over the weekend and going into the Orioles series. Speaking of the Orioles, we won Game 1 last night. Bull, let's get into it.
I like with Anthony with the we here. He's like part of the team here. I love this.
I'm so excited to watch baseball this season.
This has been magnificent. First of all, the Guardians are now up to 22nd in attendance, which doesn't sound great, but compared to where the Guardians often are at this time of year.
That's about where their high water mark has been,
But I think they're going to move up because look at what the crowds have been.
Yeah, they've had some really good crowds.
I mean, the crowds this weekend against Toronto were unbelievable. They win again yesterday in Baltimore, another impressive win. They improved to 50-26. 50-26. They're only, in terms of winning percentage, they're only behind the Phillies in all of baseball. You see they have an 8-game lead over Minnesota, a 9-game lead over Kansas City. Obviously, the other teams are completely finished. The Guardians have, 86 games left, right? 86. They could go 40-46, which they won't. I'm just saying they could go 40-46. They'd still win 90 and most likely win the division.
Yeah.
So the division is not in the bag because you never know.
Yeah.
But it's pretty close to it. I mean, an 8-game lead at this point is huge.
And it's not even the biggest
Kansas
division
City's
lead
collapsing. They're playing terrible baseball.
Right.
across Major League Baseball.
Yeah.
Outside the American League East, the division races are not close.
No.
All of them are 7,
right.
8,
Mariners
9,
got a
10
big
games.
lead in the AL West. The Brewers have a big lead in the NL Central. Dodgers have a big lead in the NL West.
And the Phillies have a big lead.
Even though the Braves are good, but the Phillies have a big lead there. Yeah. I mean, the question is going to be, are the Guardians going to get the number 1 seed over the Yankees or the Orioles? And what's interesting, by the way, one of my idiot former colleagues in New York was arguing with another former colleague in New York about, because one guy was saying, the Yankees aren't that good. They haven't beaten anybody. And the other guy said, well, they beat the Guardians. And this guy's like, the Guardians don't count. They play in the Central. Well, the Guardian, if the American League East is the best division in baseball, I think we all know that. The Guardians have a better record against the AL East than any team in baseball except for the Orioles.
I didn't know that.
That's a great stat.
Yeah.
And that was before yesterday, so it got better because they beat the Orioles yesterday. Only the Orioles. The Yankees have a lousy record against the AL East. And by the way, first of all, with the balanced schedule, you still play more games against the teams in your division.
Yes.
But not as one-sided as it used to be.
As it was.
Now you play 12 against the Royals and 6 against the Yankees, as opposed to 18 and 6.
I hated the 18
right.
night. It was awful.
And the Guardians, they've played fine against the AL Central, but their record against the AL Central is not like outrageously great where they've built up wins that way. In fact, the Guardians have a better winning percentage against the AL East and the AL West, I believe, than they do in the AL Central. And you know who does have a dominant record against the AL Central? The Yankees. They're 17-2, I believe, against the AL Central. So and the Yankees are good. I'm not saying this to say the Yankees aren't good. And I do think on paper the Yankees and Orioles are better than the Guardians.
Yeah.
But not by as much as I would have thought coming into the season. And I'm just saying the Yankees have fattened up on the Central way more than the Guardians have. The Guardians have, for the most part, beaten good teams. In fact, in the last 6 weeks, their 2 worst series were against bad teams. They had a terrible series against the White Sox where they lost 3 of 4. And then they lost...
The Rockies?
I think they lost 2 out of 3 to the Rockies. I think they had one other series lost to a good team last week.
Jays.
The
Blue Jays.
No.
They lost 2 or 3 to the Blue Jays.
Right, and then they came back and beat
yeah.
them. Right, and the Blue Jays are okay. They're not the Rockies or White Sox.
I think they're selling again. I'm back to the
Yeah. I think they are. Yesterday on the Ultimate Guardian show, I suggested, but I didn't work out who the Guardians would give back, but I was saying the Cubs should sell and potentially trade Cody Bellinger and Jameson Taillon to the Guardians. The Cubs would have to eat some money on Taillon's contract, but anyway, go ahead. But yesterday's win was a great win, and Tanner Bybee pitched a fantastic game.
He was incredible. The bullpen, once again, was incredible. Clase didn't pitch. Barlow got the save. His stuff was filthy in the 9th inning.
It was interesting that they did that because I knew Clase wouldn't pitch last night because he pitched 4 or 5 and 3 in a row. Mm-hmm. So I assumed they would just move everybody back and Hunter Gaddis would get the save, which selfishly I wanted to happen because Hunter Gaddis is on my fantasy team. But what they decided to do, and I kind of like this move in a way by Stephen Vogt, is they left the other guys because Gaddis has been lights out in the 8th inning. So and he doesn't have experience closing where Barlow does.
Yeah.
So they said, you know what, let's just hop Barlow into that spot for a night. We'll keep Gaddis in his spot.
He was filthy. I mean, his stuff was filthy last night. Tim Herron was great last night.
I mean, this has been, guys, almost every night for the Guardians' pen. 3 innings, 6 Ks, 1 base runner, no runs. I mean, that's been the MO of this bullpen.
They've been incredible.
Almost every night.
And to Jason's guy earlier, to get to the bullpen, Tanner Bybee put up another terrific start. And over the last month, I pulled his numbers because he's been hot. And Jason's bold prediction this year was Bybee will get Cy Young votes. And he's certainly creeping his way into that discussion. Over the last 30 days, Bull, he's pitched 28 in 2/3 innings. Mm-hmm. A 2.51 ERA in 28 and 2/3 innings. He has 45 strikeouts, 5 walks, and opponents are hitting under 200 against him.
Yeah,
that is
the
elite,
strikeouts are
elite
crazy.
stuff. 45 strikeouts to 4 walks in the last month.
I don't think he's going to make the All-Star team, but he's making a late run here because obviously he didn't get off to a great start, but he's making a good run. He's clearly the ace of this staff right now. And, yeah, I mean, he could end up getting some Cy Young votes late in the season. I think that's entirely possible. If he pitches the rest of the season as
like
he pitched the last month, then, he will get some votes. They've needed it big time. And he has been the anchor for them for the last month.
Has he, because it has for me, has his emergence changed how you view the trade deadline for them? Because I think it has.
No, because I still think they need more pitchers.
I do too, but I don't think that they need. In
terms of like, maybe I thought they had to get an ace?
I'm worrying about October. I don't care about June, July, August,
100%.
September. I only care about October.
I agree, yes.
I feel very comfortable Tanner Bybee pitching game 1. And I didn't. And I didn't before.
Yes, I think at this point it was unlikely they were going to be able to get a pitcher that you'd start ahead of Tanner Bybee anyway.
Yeah.
So maybe from that perspective, I get what you're saying. It hasn't changed the fact that I want them to get at least 1, if not 2 starters.
I don't think they need 2 starters.
I'd like them to get 2.
I think, and it's really hard to count on Gavin Williams right now, and he hasn't thrown a pitch yet, but I'm still going to. So if you have Tanner Bybee for game 1. And if you have Gavin Williams, I can't believe I'm going to say Ben Lively, but I'm going to say Ben Lively.
Yeah.
You only need one more. I don't trust Tristan McKenzie to start a playoff game.
He can't.
And I can't start Allen. And in fact, I would consider sending McKenzie down to the minors when Gavin Williams comes back. They won't do it, but I would consider it.
I don't think it's going to help. It is what it is.
Well, maybe so. Maybe
you can come up with a phantom IL thing and then send him on a rehab.
Yes,
but I don't like this is.
Yeah, I don't think you just can't rely on him this year.
I think I would trust him. This sounds nutty. I would trust him out of the bullpen for an inning because no one could hit his curveball.
In fact, I suggested that to Zach yesterday.
Oh, really? What did Zach say?
He liked the idea
as a one inning.
Because think about remember Carrasco early in his career. He was kind of up and down. He was struggling, and the Guardians put him in the pen.
Yeah.
The Indians at the time put him in the pen, and he was lights out in the pen.
Yeah.
And then he was a lights out pitcher after that.
Yeah, but the difference is I don't trust Tristan's stuff anymore.
But
with Carrasco it was, but
fine. But his velocity is good right now.
But when he misses his spots, he's getting hammered. I'm talking again. I don't care about July, August, September. I mean in October. I'd put him in the bullpen, use him for 1 inning, or maybe a couple of batters, because you can't hit his curveball.
Well, I would do that
just let him throw,
if I could.
Just curveballs. Just throw curves.
I want to see if he can play that role before the end of the season.
Sure.
Overall, I agree with you. Any move you make is all about October right now.
It's just
and that's why there's no rush. First of all, the prices are too high right now because there's only like 5 teams that are really selling right now, and they don't have a lot to offer. So anybody good they have is going to cost a ton. Once you get closer to the deadline on July 30th, the prices come down a little bit. Teams get desperate to trade players.
I would actually reinforce the bullpen. I would look for more bullpen help. Well, even though the bullpen is tremendous.
I agree with that. But I will say this, Jason. If you're relying on Gavin Williams and Ben Lively to be 2 of your starters in the playoffs, that is a big risk.
Which is part of the reason why I would go get Mason Miller. Because I think Mason Miller is a better lock than anything else you're going to get as a starter.
Sure.
If you can cut the game down to 4 innings from your starter, 4 or 5 innings, like 2 times through the order, and then you have, and I'm just using Mason Miller as an example, Mason Miller, Clase, Cade Smith, Barlow, Gaddis, Henches,
Herron.
You can cut this down to a 4-inning game, 4 or 5 inning game. I think it's more important to go get a lights out bullpen.
But here's the reason, and I'm in favor of that too. First of all, I'm feeling right now like G. Bush with Operation Stockpile. Like, don't settle for the minimum. Let's go. And I'm not saying the second pitcher. I just want another pitcher that can eat some innings to protect the bullpen some during the regular season. Yes, I might not use that guy in the playoffs if I get a 4th or 5th starter that can eat 5-6 innings a game, but he can help keep the bullpen just a little fresher. And the fact that the bullpen has pitched so many innings hasn't been a negative factor to this point. It doesn't mean it won't happen at some point.
Yeah.
And so I think you need some extra arms down the stretch that can help the bullpen be better. But yes, in theory, if you can get a Mason Miller,
1 starter and 1 dominant bullpen arm.
And listen, there's other
and no bat. You're good at.
Oh no, they got to get a bat.
You're saying that on top of the bat.
I want another bat too.
I think they need I think you need an outfielder. I think you need. I'm still not sold on Will Brennan.
I'm not either.
As an everyday player.
I'm not either. But I think Zach made a good point when we were talking about this yesterday. He's like, go get a hitter. Don't worry about the position. You have enough flexible guys that you can move around.
Right.
Get the best hitter you can get. If it's an outfielder, great. If it's a shortstop, great. Whatever it is, it's a first baseman, DH, whatever. Get the best hitter you can get, and then you figure out the position. Even if it's a center fielder, you can move Freeman to second. You can move Jimenez to short if you had to.
I'm just trying to be realistic about like how many moves are they really going to make, and I think 1 to 2 is realistic.
Yeah.
Anything more than that,
this is the year to go all in.
I totally agree with
that.
This
is 100% the year to go all in.
Isn't it kind of? I don't know if ironic and funny are the right words because I'm 99% sure they're not. But this Guardians team has had such a good farm system for so long, and this is the year where it's like, all right, let's push all the chips to the table, and it's not nearly as strong of a farm system this year as they've had in the last couple of years because a lot of the guys have already been called up.
Yeah, and some guys have lost their stature.
Yeah, exactly.
They have a mid-tier
it's an average farm system right now.
The Orioles, who they're competing with, have a way better farm system.
I think that there's more depth to Cleveland's than high-end talent.
Yes.
Like their 8th, 9th, 10th, 11th prospects are pretty doggone good. They may not have the number one guy, and really,
although Ralphie Velasquez is moving up the charts.
That's my guy.
there.
I'm telling you, I'm Team Ralphie.
But a lot of trades that we're seeing today are your 3rd, your 5th, your 7th, and your 11th prospect.
The Guardians have to be. They have not traded from their glut of players. They have to do it. They have to be aggressive. Again, I'm not asking them to do it today, but sometime in the next 4 weeks, 5 weeks. They have to get at least one starter and at least one hitter. Minimum. I'd like to see them get 2 starters, a reliever, and a hitter, even 2 hitters. But I could live with 1 starter and 1 hitter minimum. But you got to do it.
Do they have the assets to do that, though? That's my question.
Yeah, I think they do. There are very interesting starting pitchers. There's different guys. The Blue Jay guys, Jamison Tyone of the Cubs, Mark Leiter Jr. is an interesting guy out of the Cubs pen.
I still like Severino from the Mets.
Severino's a good one.
He pitched great the other day.
I was going to say Kyle Gibson of the Cardinals, but the Cardinals are playing well. I don't think they're going to trade. Jack Flaherty from the Tigers.
Yeah.
He's an interesting one.
I like Flaherty. He's the lefty, right?
No, he's not lefty. He's a righty.
He's righty.
Never mind. Who's the lefty on Detroit? Nasty
Skubal?
stuff.
No.
Scubal's lefty.
Is he lefty?
Yeah.
Why does that
Yeah,
sound?
Scubal's lefty.
Yeah, okay. Well, they're not trading him.
Yeah, not trading Skubal.
I don't know. I heard that they.
Well, you know how much you'd have to give up to get him?
I know.
I would do it.
Would he be worth it?
100%. He's top 5 pitcher in baseball.
That's what I'm saying. I'd give it all up.
Yeah, I mean, would they trade him to the Guardians, though? I don't know. The Guardians would have to. Yeah, I don't think they trade him.
Remember we had the Luis Robert discussion.
Right,
that's different because
this
Skubal
guy's
has so
got
much control.
5 years of control, I think. 4 at least.
I don't think that much. Probably 4.
4.
Oh, yeah, you give up the farm for that then.
Yeah, probably 3 to 4.
Oh, I'd give up whatever it took to get him.
Yeah.
I'd give up Manzardo. I'd give up
everyone but Ralphie.
anybody. I give up anybody in this.
Ralphie
system.
is
There's
untouchable.
nobody off limits. I'd trade Gavin Williams for him.
You do Gavin? Yeah,
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, Harper.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're right. I said that, and then I was like, yeah, no, it's stupid.
Yeah, but I'd trade anybody to get Skubal. But anyway, go. We have our guest?
We do. Joe is ready to bring in here. Before we do, I want to remind everybody that Earl, if he does the Ultimate 216, and he does a little bit of culture, and he does a little bit of sports, and this week, he and I might go and talk about some sports movies. So tune in Thursday.
Ooh, I'll be watching that to see if you guys have good taste or not. And if you don't, I'm going to rip you both.
Earl, I take that back. I don't want to come on now. I'm a little scared. But don't miss Ultimate 216 every Thursday with Earl. It's a great show. Good times. Never miss out every Thursday.
Joe Noga's with us. He covers the Guardians, of course. Joe, what's your favorite sports movie?
Oh, gosh. I can't pass up Miracle every time it's on.
It's a good one.
Every time Miracle is on, I have to watch it. And Hoosiers. I go back to Hoosiers.
Both classics.
Good
Have
choice.
you seen Miracle, by the way?
The hockey movie?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Did you just ask the hockey
Well,
movie?
you made it sound like I wasn't 100% sure.
What
so
other miracle would there be?
Miracle on 34th Street?
Yeah.
Nobody cares about that old movie. It's ancient history. Joe, you just heard. I'm sure you just heard our conversation a little bit about being aggressive, and we know the Guardians in recent years, really since the pandemic, have not been aggressive when they've had it. But this seems like the perfect opportunity this year. They are far and away the best team in the division. They're right there. They have at the moment a better record than both Baltimore and the Yankees. But on paper, those teams are better. And the Guardians, as great as they're playing, they're going to need some reinforcements at some point, especially in the pitching staff. What say you? Do you have confidence that this team will be aggressive this year?
I agree that they do need to add. I agree that if there was a time for them to do so, it's exactly right now. In past years, you might have been able to sort of understand why they didn't make a big move like they could have. But will they make a move like you're talking about trading Manzardo, trading from this depth at the upper minor leagues? I don't know. I'm not confident that they will. I'm hopeful that they will, just because I want to see how far this team can go. And I think you need to add an arm and add a bat if they're going to do that. I don't think that the front office really is inclined to make a major move and give up all of that depth at the top of the upper minor leagues.
Joe, I don't think they're moving Manzardo or Gavin Williams or anything like that. I think Manzardo is the replacement for Josh Naylor.
Yeah.
Which leads into this is it. This is the window. You've got, what is it, a year and a half left with Naylor? He's not signing an extension. Mm-hmm. It would have happened already if he was going to do it. Quan heads into arbitration next year. It probably would have happened already if he was going to sign an extension. Like, it's pretty, just read the tea leaves here of what's going on. This is the window right now to win before you have to start making some really hard roster decisions. Am I way off on that?
I mean, we don't know what's beyond the next few years in terms of what the ownership situation is, in terms of what budgets or finances are going to look like by the time maybe a Stephen Kwan reaches free agency and that kind of thing. So who knows who's going to be holding the purse strings at that time. But I agree that an opportunity like this doesn't come around every year. It's not. You need to strike now. Absolutely, this is when you need to push forward, push your chips on the table, and go and get an arm, go and get a bat, and then in the off season when these kind of deals are made, if you decide that Stephen Kwan is the next face of your franchise beyond Jose Ramirez, then you back up the Brinks truck.
Joe, do you trust Tristan McKenzie on a scale of 1 to 10? Where would your trust level in Tristan fall?
Probably somewhere between a 5 and a 7, just because he can get guys out with the stuff that he has right now. It's just the consistency in the strike zone when he can't command his fastball, and he's walking guys, he's giving up home runs. But here's the thing: he'll give up a home run early in a game and then settle in and retire 12 of the next 14. We haven't seen it his last couple of starts, but it's there. He's got the ability to do that. He's certainly got the ability to do that against AL Central teams. I just don't know if, like you use the word trust, I don't know if I trust him to go up against a lineup like Baltimore's where, top to bottom, they can take you out of the yard, and there's no rest in that lineup. There's nowhere to catch a break in that lineup. And I think right now, Tristan McKenzie's struggling with to command his fastballs. The confidence is there. The ability to get guys out is there. He says he's not pitching in pain. He says his arm is sound. So you got to take him at his word.
Joe, when do you expect us to see Gavin Williams in the Guardians rotation?
I think he's got his next rehab start coming up. I believe it's going to be for Columbus this week, and then after that, maybe one start before the All-Star break, right. Maybe 1 or 2 starts before the All-Star break, and then he goes from there. I expect that he'll be ready, just because we haven't heard any reports of any setbacks or any sort of lingering issues. Now it's been full go since that injection a couple months back.
Joe, I know you cover this team, and the crowds this year have been, big. They're up to 22nd in attendance, as Bull mentioned earlier, and just the overall vibes of the team seem to be way up. Is there any tangible difference you've noticed from being around them from last season to this season that you think have contributed to that?
I don't really know if it's a difference from last season to this season. I just think that like you said, the vibe is really good. It was a party atmosphere at the ballpark this past weekend. I mean, you had Shaq on the infield. You had
awesome.
Tristan McKenzie singing Kelly Clarkson standing next to him. It was just a real vibe in the ballpark. 100,000 fans for the 3-game series came out. Just the energy has been great, and it starts in the clubhouse. It starts with Stephen Vogt allowing these guys to be themselves and feel free to go out there and play the game the way that they do. And you've got Jose Ramirez leading from the top. The young guys taking their cues from him, the energy that he brings, and it's infectious, and it's now reaching out into the stands, and you can see it. It was a party atmosphere in that ballpark all weekend.
Explain the power surge.
Great question.
It's the wind. It's clearly the wind tunnel, right? It's the wind tunnel. That's the only reason you can have no. I go back to Terry Francona saying when Stephen Kwan was, putting up ridiculous numbers his first month in the big leagues back in 2022. These guys are going to grow into their power. Andres Jimenez, even Josh Naylor to a point, but he was already there. You're talking about a team of young guys who are learning the league and learning how pitchers are going to try to attack them. And now Stephen Kwan doesn't spot you that first pitch fastball in the strike zone anymore. He takes you out of the yard when you throw him that. They've got guys now who their approach is a lot better than it has been, and not just a better approach, but they're learning how to execute that approach. And I think that's what's resulted in this power surge and this ability to be more aggressive and still make contact and still be one of the best contact hitting teams in the league. But now if you make a mistake, they're going to make you pay for it. And we've seen that. And maybe opening up the upper deck in right and left field kind of helped that out. There's still a lot to be determined in terms of data with that wind tunnel theory and all that. But it can't hurt. And now you've got guys who are at least putting the ball up there into the stratosphere to let the wind carry it out of the ballpark. I think I've been in contact with some physicists, a guy from the University of Illinois who's a foremost authority on baseballs in flight and that kind of thing. And he says that the average carry and the average distance is increased this year at Progressive Field. So it's something to keep an eye on over the next 2 or 3 years. But I think it has more to do with the approach that's being taken by these young, aggressive hitters. More so than any sort of physical changes to the ballpark.
Joe, let's wrap it up with this. Forget 400. Only 4 batters have hit 375 in a season or higher in the last 50, 60 years, right? You had Tony Gwynn, Larry Walker, I think Rod Carew, and George Brett, I believe, are the only guys that have hit over 375. If you had to bet today, Stephen Kwan, over, under 375, what are you betting?
I would bet under, but I think he would make it very interesting and keep it very close throughout the year.
Yeah.
Since he's come back off the injured list, he's been phenomenal. Like I said, combining that contact ability with aggressiveness now in the strike zone. Stephen Vogt said, if you make a mistake, if you miss in the zone, Stephen Kwan's going to make you pay, and that's what he's been doing. It's not just it's the ability to take walks as well, and the command of the strike zone that he's shown since he arrived in Cleveland. He's got it all. He's putting it all together right now, and he's one of the toughest hitters to get out in all of baseball.
Mm-hmm. Joe, we appreciate it, man. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks, Joe.
Hey, anytime, guys.
We were just talking about Stephen Kwan there. Mentioned the guys who have hit 375. I said it was Tony Gwynn. I guess it might be 4 guys, because I know Larry Walker hit over 375. I know Gwynn did.
Which is nuts, because he was a good hitter, but he wasn't that good of a hitter.
Well,
Kwan's gone from 297 to 290.
Well, yeah. Larry Walker was.
390.
I mean, Larry Walker was a Hall of Famer.
Yeah, but he wasn't. I think that was only 1 year, where he hit anywhere close to that high.
He was
320, 315.
Yeah. He wasn't the same type of hitter as Rod Carew, George Brett,
right.
and Tony Gwynn. I give you that. But what Kwan has done so far is remarkable, but it tells you how hard it is. Like, he's not going to hit 400. It's just not going to happen. And that's a zero knock at Kwan. It's just, it's really impossible to hit 400.
Tyvis made a bet with Jay.
Yeah.
that if he hits 400, and Jason joined it, I believe.
Yeah.
No, I did not.
They'll shave
Absolutely
their heads
not.
live on the show if Quan hits 400.
Don't be putting that stink
Will
on
you
me,
join
Ricky.
Jake
I will
Crawford?
join him if he hits 400. I would love to.
I'll
First
do
of all, I
the
don't care.
shaving.
I'll shave my head.
I ain't shaving my head.
I'll shave my head if Stephen Quan hits 400. I think the question is, can he hit 375? Because so few guys have even done that.
Yeah.
Like
And
you
I think he can.
You look at through the 1880s through the 1920s, guys did it. Who knows how the hell they were keeping stats? But in my lifetime, it's been either 3 or 4. I can't remember now if Carew and Brett both did it, but I think they did. I don't know. Anyway,
It's
it
less than
almost
a
never
handful.
happens.
Less than a handful.
It never happens, even 375. So can Quan hit 375? I think he's got a chance.
Yeah, I think he can.
But remember, Luis Ariz was hitting 400 last year, and he finished at 340 something. And that's a zero knock at Quan. I love Stephen Quan, but it is to hit this well is insane. It's like you have to go 2 for 5 every night.
Yeah. The difference, I think, between Quan and Ariz never got power, never found. Quan has more power than Ariz ever did. And therefore can hit barrels, more doubles.
Sure.
Ariz is a slap hitter.
Yes.
He is what he is.
Sure.
The thing about Quan, too, is over the course of this season, he's hit every pitch in every location in the strike zone.
Yeah, he's got. If you look at the hot zone, he's hot in every zone.
High and tight, he finds a way to get just enough of the barrel out to shoot it to left field. Throwing away, he'll slap it, find a way, get on base.
Yeah.
Down the middle, he's finding ways to hit it off the barrel. His exit velo's way up. His power numbers, he already has a career high in home runs, and he's played half
and
the
extra
season.
base hits.
And extra base hits. There's not a single pitch in baseball right now that you could throw Stephen Quan and feel good about.
Right, and he doesn't swing
Not a single one.
And he doesn't swing at bad
I saw his
pitch.
swing rate,
Yeah.
swing and miss rate was 5.9%.
Right,
which
way
is
better than anybody else.
Literally absurd.
He doesn't swing at bad pitches. You can't get him to chase. He doesn't.
No, he's
really
got a great
ever
eye.
chase.
He takes walks. Like he's perfectly content.
It's
taking a
when
walk.
you see him take a strike, it stands out because he struck out about a week or so ago on a called third strike that was right down the middle, and I was stunned.
It froze him.
Because it almost never happens.
Yeah.
First of all, he doesn't strike out. He's been a remarkable story. On what else can you say? I mean, the guy's been absolutely incredible, and he is so important to this team.
Yes.
Because he just sets the table every time for Jose and Naylor. And by the way, remember in late April we discussed Naylor's the best hitter on the team for the last year, and then he went ice cold. And then 3 weeks ago I said he's about to get hot. Boom.
He's been better.
I mean, if we're being Stephen Quan's the best hitter on the team.
Well, yes, true.
Stephen Quan is
No,
close to one of
my
the best
argument
hitters in
wasn't
the
that I
league.
was right about Naylor being the best hitter
No,
on the team.
I know.
It's that I was right about him getting
But
hot
it's
again.
funny as we were having the Naylor Hosey debate.
Right.
No one even mentioned Quan.
Right, sure.
If
Well,
you talk about the best hitter on the team,
right now,
it's
yeah,
Stephen Quan. He might be the best hitter in all of baseball.
Don't say that because he ain't going to slump now.
Well, we're gonna jinx them all.
Yeah,
We
well,
did.
he's not the Aaron Judge is the best hitter in baseball.
Power hitter, yes.
Yeah, but Aaron Judge hitting over 300
Yeah,
too,
I know.
right?
I
You
know.
I
But
mean,
but like, would you consider Tony Gwynn one of the best hitters of all
it
time?
depends how you analyze
Yeah,
it.
that's
I mean,
what-
to
yeah.
me, Tony Gwynn's the best pure hitter I've ever seen.
Yes, I totally agree
Yeah.
with that. I'm not putting Quan in that category yet.
No, he's got to do it more. But
yes.
to me, when I think of the greatest pure hitters that I've seen, it's Gwynn, it's Ichiro, it's George Brett, it's Wade Boggs,
Was Barry
it's
Bonds-
Rod Carew, who I knew in my in his younger
Is
years.
Bonds on that list for you? I feel like he has to.
Yes, no, not in that group.
I don't think he's on that list.
Not on that list.
But he's one of the most. He's probably the most feared hitter ever. So it just depends on your
if you ask me who's the best
definition.
baseball player I've ever seen,
Bonds.
no, I would say Ken Griffey Jr. because Bonds cheated.
Fair.
But
I'd
Bonds
still
was
say
right there.
Bonds.
My question
Bonds
is,
was phenomenal before he cheated.
Right, but I don't know that he was better than Griffey before he cheated.
Griffey had so many injuries.
Not early in his career. He did once he went to Cincinnati,
Yeah.
but in Seattle he didn't.
how the hell did Quan hit 267 last year?
That's hard to believe.
Like, it just
It doesn't make any
really
sense.
is hard to fathom knowing how good
Yeah.
he is. And I know the power numbers are up, but even as
Yeah.
a rookie,
I
he hit
think some-
297.
Some of it is just the adjustment of the second year.
Yeah.
We've seen it before. If you start slow, you surge. If you come out, and he had a very good. No one knew anything about Stephen Quan his rookie year.
Right.
Hit 297 as
Right.
a rookie.
And he hit two. Yeah.
He's also changed his philosophy. He's much more aggressive at the plate
Yes.
right now than he's been
Yes.
his first 2 years in the league. And he's confident.
It's cliche, but it's you adjust to the league adjusts to you, and then you adjust back.
Right.
And clearly,
and he has done that. And what's remarkable is he was great before he got hurt. He misses a month, and you're like, okay, maybe he'll be a little rusty.
He's been even better.
Zero.
He's been even better.
I mean,
he was hitting 350 when he went on the DL.
Yeah. What's he hitting since he come back from the DL? Like 500?
I don't know
He's
if
back close to 500.
He was 350 when he went on the IL.
Yeah.
So,
I'm not sure if it's still it was 500.
Yeah.
I think
it's gone down a little bit.
But I mean, he's every night, even last night, the first at bat of the game, rips a single down right past the first baseman on a pitch that was a pretty darn good pitch. Like,
by the way,
that is another just testament to what he does.
One thing from last night, by the way, how about that throw? I can't remember now who was playing.
Santander.
Right.
Got Schneemann at home.
I can't believe that throw was unbelievable.
That was a missile.
When he throws that ball, I'm like, oh, they're going to score easy.
Schneemann's got decent speed. Like, he's not.
He's not
center field.
Yeah, he's not a slow
slappy
dude. Yeah.
You had to make a perfect throw to get him out, and he made a perfect throw.
Laser.
That was unbelievable, and right on the catcher.
Do you know what I love? When you see on like your Twitter algorithm or your Instagram reels, when they just throw like old montages of the best throws in baseball.
Oh yeah, sure.
Awesome. Yasiel Puig had one from right field when he's with the Dodgers. They got a guy tagging from second.
Well, I've seen Andre Dawson make some crazy
it's just
ones.
Incredible.
Bo Jackson had the best as far as I was throwing out Harold Reynolds from the warning track.
Yeah, he had
I have to see that
guy.
That one.
I wonder if he had stayed healthy and had only played baseball, how good a baseball player he could have been.
Phenomenal.
I think he would have been a Hall of Famer.
Could have been. He was phenomenal.
Yeah.
That's the best athlete of my lifetime.
Either him or LeBron.
Bo.
Yeah.
Bo's the best
I'd
athlete.
have to go with Bo. You're right.
Remember watching LeBron try at batting practice back in the day?
That's true. Yeah, fair.
To be that coordinated in two different things is incredible.
I mean, LeBron could have been in football too if you wanted to stay two-sport star.
Speaking of Bo, I know it wasn't a really hard hit barrel yesterday, but his RBI double finally, you hope that could build upon.
He's been a little better.
He's been a little starting to come out of it. A little bit.
I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if he had a big second half offensively.
I mean, 230 would be a big second half. I'd take 230.
Just the home runs too, clutch home runs.
3 this year, right?
Yeah. Obviously Naylor and Jose are playing great. They're doing a lot of things right, and they're getting just enough starting pitching with great defense and great. Although they made an error yesterday that led to a run against Bybee. Who made that? Was it Naylor? I think made an error.
They charged him. Was it on the first base play where he couldn't catch it? They charged him.
Yeah. They charged him with an error.
Tonight's pitching matchup's Logan Allen versus Cole Irvin.
Don't love that.
How familiar are you with Cole Irvin?
I mean, he's a back end of the rotation guy who's pitched decently. He's been in and out of the rotation. The plan was for him not be in the Orioles rotation this year. He was going to be like their swing man, but they've had a lot of injuries to their rotation.
Yeah.
And he's pitched pretty well. They got him a year ago, or it was a year ago or 2 years ago from Oakland. He's a decent pitcher, but he's nothing special. I mean, Logan Allen he's been up and down, obviously. There's been more bad than good with him, but listen, that was an impressive win. The Orioles are a really good team.
Yeah. That was a fun game.
They got a great lineup, and when it was 3-2, and when they took Bybee out, I'm like, all right, let's get them some insurance. They did, but they still won. And, hold that Oriole lineup to 2 runs is pretty impressive.
That's no joke. That lineup's dangerous.
And they called up another one of their best prospects yesterday, and Kerstad.
He had 2 hits.
Yeah, he's good.
Yeah.
They all look exactly the same.
I was just going to say the exact same thing.
All look
Gunnar Henderson, Holiday, Herstad,
Colton
Cowser, and then what's his name? The kid who pitched for them yesterday,
Popovich.
They all look the same. They all have the same round, kind of reddish face.
It's incredible,
bizarre.
and they're all good.
They're all good.
They're all really
and then
good.
we didn't even mention their 2 best young guys, Gunnar Henderson and Adley Rutschman, who were superstars.
Yeah.
And they got their minor leagues just stacked.
Yeah,
too.
and Jordan
Just
Westberg's
stacked.
become an excellent player.
I think they're going to have to trade their top, who was supposed to be their third baseman. Westberg's been so good.
Yeah.
They might have to move Mayo now.
They might. I mean, they just don't have room for all these guys. But
and that's what concerns me, actually, is Baltimore is one of the teams that really concerns me in terms of Cleveland at the trade deadline.
Oh, yeah, they need a pitcher, and they got more to offer.
They got more to offer.
Wait, is it incorrect to say way more to offer?
No, it's not incorrect.
Way more.
I don't know if they're going to move
depending on who they're willing to trade.
But I just mean from an asset standpoint.
Baltimore's,
yeah, I mean, if they're willing to trade, and I don't think they'd be willing to trade Holiday.
No, they're not.
But if they were willing to trade Mayo, Kerstad, these guys all are better than anybody the Guardians have to offer at the moment. Okay. So, go ahead.
I think you guys did miss the most intense part of that game yesterday was in the 8th inning when Gaddis had a 15-pitch bat.
Oh,
I can't remember who it was.
It was Kerstad.
It was Kerstad.
Yeah.
Kerstad?
Yeah,
that was a hell of a bat.
That was a great at bat. We saw a great at bat by Spencer Horwitz the day before for Toronto against Class A. I thought that was an impressive at-bat.
We're actually missing the biggest part of the game. The catch by the fan in right
That
field.
was
I saw that.
That was
unbelievable.
I didn't
Man,
see-
can you pull that tag board?
Let me see if I can find
Yeah,
it.
Just search
it was
for
like
it.
a one-handed, barehanded
saw
catch.
It was
I thought he was gonna like fall over
incredible.
Yeah, he was like out there by himself. That guy.
He held onto his phone.
Yeah, that was
Himself,
very impressive.
His
I'm
beard.
sending it to you right now, Ant.
I got it.
I mean, that was like that's catch of the year stuff.
Yeah, I mean, how far? I got to tell you something right now, and I know part of this is because the Cubs suck. I would rather, if you told me right now, you could have the Cubs in the World Series or the Guardians, I'd say put the Guardians in the World Series.
Yeah.
I am more excited about the Guardians than I am about the team that I grew up rooting for, and I want them to win a World Series so freaking bad. I know all of you do as diehard fans, but I am so into this team. They're so much fun to watch. They're so likable.
They
as
do
a
it
team.
all the right way. They do it the right way.
Everything. And they're humble. They love each other. I can't remember who it was now. I was going to give a shout out to whoever had this tweet, and I can't remember who it was. Some former media member in Cleveland. I can't remember. There was a picture. I don't know if you saw the post-game press conference on Sunday against Toronto.
Oh, of Quan
it was
and
Quan
Naylor.
and Naylor, and
Yeah.
it said they looked like they were
Just got in
being
trouble.
disciplined by mom or whatever.
He got sent to the principal's office.
Yeah.
Recess.
But it was so. I mean, like the way Naylor talked about Quan, and you could tell Quan is embarrassed about.
Yeah.
Like and Zach points that out in his article. He doesn't like the praise. It makes him very uncomfortable. But Naylor, and then Quan gives praise to Naylor because Naylor is such a great leader. And anyway, go ahead, Anthony. Oh, this
Got
is
the
the play.
video.
Yeah, look at what this fan did in this play. If you didn't see it.
Might be the catch of the year.
Oh yeah. We gonna be able to see it.
It's gonna be
Yeah.
hard to see.
They show the replay.
What is he doing there? It's like he knew the ball was coming there. There's nobody else in that area at all.
No.
And he deserves the praise.
Oh, I thought they had a better
I thought
angle.
they showed the replay. Let me see if I can find another angle.
Yeah. It's hard to see him catch it.
Like over the railing.
Yeah. He could have fallen off and died.
Yeah.
You're right.
But he got the ball, so it's all worth it.
It was impressive.
It's a hell of a catch.
Do we have any super chats, Anthony?
Yeah, we got 3. Mike, while you keep looking for that,
Yeah.
I'll read them real fast. From the beginning of the show, Halim Youssef said, I'd like to apologize to the show and Jay. It seems his assumptions about the hiring for the Cavs coach yesterday were spot on.
Oh, why? What happened?
Halim, who, by the way, shout out Halim. Great dude.
We like Halim.
Yeah. He sent a super chat yesterday saying, don't jump to conclusions. We don't know if it was,
That it was a
Dan
Dan.
or whatever.
Of course it's Dan. It's always Dan. We know that by now, but it's all right. Doesn't mean it's bad in this case. It was bad the last 2 times, but in this case, it's not bad.
Regardless of, like we said at the beginning, regardless of how they got to the outcome, Kenny Atkinson's a good
It's a
head
good
coach.
choice.
Yeah.
He's a good choice.
If they were trotting Dan Hurley out next week with the 6-year, $100 million contract,
Yeah.
That
Even
would
though
be-
he's a great coach, but
that's not
wouldn't
going to
have
work.
worked.
That's not going to work.
Go ahead, Anthony.
The Almighty says that after the game on the pre-show, Harold Reynolds said that Cleveland wasn't a top 5 team. Sounds silly. Do you agree? So I'm not sure how it's an after-the-game pre-show, but apparently
After the game.
They're a top 5 team in baseball right now. By any metric.
Yeah,
offensively,
they are.
defensively,
Right
pitching.
now-
They're a top 5 team in baseball right now. And it doesn't necessarily mean it'll be the entire season.
Yeah.
But
Well,
you
he's
cannot make a
probably-
case.
He's probably trying
what
to
he's
project.
saying is he doesn't think in the end they'll be one of the 5 best teams, and he may be right. They may be, because you got the Yankees, the Orioles, the Dodgers, the Phillies, and the Braves. I don't know though. All those teams on paper are better than the Guardians.
Yes, that's
But I don't think they're that far off any of them. I really don't. But they've got to. It's imperative that they make additions to the roster. Whether Harold Reynolds thinks they're a top 5 team or not is irrelevant. They've got to keep playing great as they have, and they got to win when it matters in the playoffs.
Chris Antonelli and Mike Chernoff need to think that they're a top 5 team.
Yes,
That's what matters.
You know what? And even if they're not top 5, okay, so they're 6.
Right,
Whatever.
right.
Who cares? They're
Top
good enough.
10.
They can win the World Series. This team can do it. They got to get enough. They got to get better pitching, whether that's a combination of Gavin Williams and outside forces, whether it's just as Jason said, and it makes a lot of sense. Boost them, take an already great bullpen and make it better. I mean, if you added Mason Miller to this pen, who's the closer of Oakland, unless you're a diehard baseball fan, you probably don't know who he is.
His stuff's
filthy.
He is
electric.
nasty. And by the way, Clase was throwing 103 the other day. He's throwing harder. What the hell was that?
I don't know.
And can you imagine? Because in the playoffs, you could get 9 outs between those two guys. Not every night, but you got a game 7, you got a game 5.
Yes.
Well, I'm getting 9 outs from those two guys.
Yeah.
You don't want to do it every game,
Right.
And that's why you want the starting pitching. But I don't even know if I need to because these other guys have been so good. Will they all keep it up? Probably not.
Yeah.
But you don't need them all to keep it up. You need some of them. To
Right.
do it. Go ahead, Mike. Did you find another angle or no?
Okay.
Okay.
I'll get it in 1 second. We
One
got 2
more.
more super chats here.
2 more.
One from Eric Spicer here says, "Is it crazy to hope for the 2nd seed instead of the 1 so we don't have to go through both the Yankees and the Orioles in the playoffs?"
So funny that Eric brought that up because I've been thinking about that.
Mm-hmm.
I think if you're the Guardians, you're not going to worry about that. You got to play who you play.
Right.
Now, and remember, it's baseball. Like in basketball, well, Boston's not going to lose in the first round to whoever the hell they played. I don't even remember now who they played in the first round. Miami. Like, in most cases, they're not. Whereas, even as much as I like Baltimore, right?
They could lose in the first round.
Baltimore is going to be, if they don't win the division, they're going to be the 4 seed. So they would play the 5 seed in the first round of the playoffs, which is, it could be Minnesota, it could be Boston, it could be Houston, it could be Texas. Like, they can lose that series.
Yes.
Baltimore, right now, their starting rotation behind Burns. I like Grayson Rodriguez, but Burns is the only sure thing they got. So they could lose. And then, now you don't play Baltimore. So you play. You want to be the 1 seed. You have home field advantage. But I get it. In a perfect world, yes, I'd rather the Orioles and Yankees have to play each other. Yes.
I was gonna say the one thing in baseball, particularly, is having the bottom of the 9th. You're up and having that chance.
Yeah, it's a big deal.
In baseball, home field advantage, I feel like means
it's not. Yes.
So much more than. I mean, it means something in every sport, but
Right.
in baseball, particularly, like there's a legit, tangible advantage to being the home team. And if you are gonna play the Yankees or Baltimore, whoever, in the ALCS, in a Game 7, I for sure want it right there at Progressive Field where the Guardians have the best home record in baseball.
And listen, I didn't think the Yankees were going to be that good coming into the season. I'll get you just 1 second. They're a lot better than I thought, although their pitching's starting to crack a little bit. But the Yankees will be the toughest matchup.
Yes.
I know the Orioles are good, but there is something to playing the Yankees, being in their stadium. It's tough. Now, the Guardians have dominated Aaron Judge, especially in the playoffs, for whatever reason. I have no idea. But
That was a long time ago.
well, even last year.
2 years ago.
Oh, 2 years ago. He was terrible against them.
That's not a risk I want to take time after time.
But as I was going to say, that could change at any time.
I don't want that smoke.
And he's probably the best player in baseball right now.
Yes.
So, Shohei Ohtani's the best player in baseball, and Aaron Judge is too, in my opinion. But
I take Judge over Ohtani because Ohtani's not pitching right now. When Ohtani's pitching, yes.
I would still take Ohtani because Ohtani brings a speed element even more than Judge.
True. Judge is pretty athletic.
Yeah, but Ohtani's got like almost 20 stolen bases.
I know, he's faster, but Judge is not a stiff.
No, I'm not saying he's a stiff. I'm just saying he's better.
But he plays the outfield.
Yeah, but he's not that good. He's fine. He's got a good arm. He's overrated in the outfield because he's a Yankee.
He's solid.
I remember one guy trying to argue with me he's a Gold Glove outfielder.
No.
That's ridiculous. He's fine. He's fine in the outfield. It's close. We're splitting hairs between Ohtani and Aaron Judge. Go ahead.
All right, last super chat is from Kyle Benner. It says McNuggets with the Emmy shoe swag. Congrats to everybody. Thank you, Kyle.
The what shoe swag?
Emmy.
Emmy shoe.
What does that mean? I don't know what that means.
I just got my
Emmy, like an Emmy.
I just got my.
I thought that was some. I thought it was like ME, like a gang title or something. I don't know.
EMMY.
No, I just got my white Nikes on. Nothing crazy.
It's a very thick
normal shoes.
heels. No?
Nah, it's Air Force. I mean, it's just normal Air Force.
All right.
All right, you got the replay in?
Yeah, I got the replay ready for you guys.
Aaron's trying to show off his Air Jordans, by the way.
Yeah, Aaron's got better shoes than I do right now.
Oh, this is a better angle? This is the same angle?
Then it replays.
Oh, okay.
Gives you a little better close-up.
I
There's
love
not really
how this guy wants the applause. He wants
not really a camera angle designed to shoot up there.
Of
great,
course not.
but they
Yeah,
do
yeah,
show
yeah.
a little replay here, which is just incredible. One-handed grab over the
It's still hard
railing.
to see. I couldn't
Like
really
it was the
see.
same angle. I appreciate it, but
It was slowed down. At least it was a replay.
Nah, all right. Well, whatever. It was a great catch by the guy.
shout out to that guy.
Kudos to him. Kudos to him. All right, that's it for the Super Chats.
That is it for our super chats today, guys. I am going to figure out what we're going to talk about in overtime as you guys lead us out for the.
We're not going to talk about sports movies in overtime?
I don't know. We might talk about some movies.
Tell me about this conversation you two are going to have about sports movies. Like,
I don't know. He told me like 10 seconds before I did the read, so I was like, all right.
Earl, give me some. Why sports movies in particular, and is there like a theme to this or no? Just randomly.
So I've just been sitting back. I watched The Sixth Man the other day. I watched The Hurricane with Denzel Washington a couple of days ago.
Wait a second. You had never seen that before?
No, I seen them, but I still watched the movie.
Oh, The
I watched
Hurricane's
Major League maybe
movie,
3 weeks
I've
ago,
never
and it
seen
just
it.
got me to thinking about like all my different different or favorite sports movies I like to watch. I'm going to probably watch He Got Game a little later today.
All right, good. I love sports movie conversations, so I'll be plugged in
What's
for
your
the
favorite?
216 show. If I had to pick my favorite sports movie of all time, I would say it's Remember the Titans or the original Bad News Bears I love.
That's a good one.
I cannot believe you haven't seen The Hurricane. That is a great movie.
Never even heard of it.
Bad News Bears is a good pick.
Denzel Washington plays Reuben Hurricane Carter. It's based on a true story. He was a boxer that was jailed for a murder. Should I say this spin or should I not say it, Earl? I mean, it's an old enough movie. I can't really spoil it. He didn't commit the murder. He got railroaded because he was black. And it's based on a true story.
Got you.
So there you go.
The only correct answer in Cleveland to best sports
Major League.
movie is Major League.
That's certainly on the list, too. We'll see you on Overtime, the ultimate Cleveland sports show.